Good morning and welcome to today's proceedings of the National Assembly, this being the first day of August 2018. This morning there will be a petition by the residents of Tigania East constituency, and the subject of that petition is in increased cases of cattle rustling in Tigania East constituency. The petition will be presented by the Honorable Josephat Gishunge, MP. Also this morning, a question will be put on the motion seeking the installation of CCTV cameras in all public secondary schools. This particular motion has already been debated conclusively. It was moved by the Honorable Member for Okadiani constituency, Robert Mbui, that aware of the increased cases of insecurity in schools, including the regrettable cases of defilement and rape that have been reported in various schools, with the most recent case being reported in Moi Girls, Nairobi, where a student was raped. Further aware that incidences of buildings in public secondary schools being touched by unruly students over time have been numerous. The member is concerned that most perpetrators of the disastrous acts of defilement, rape and arson in schools go unpunished due to the difficulty in establishing a nexus between them and the acts, and therefore many of the suspects behind the said crimes evade responsibility. That this House urges that the government speedily rolls out installation of closed-circuit television cameras in strategic locations in all public secondary schools as an enhanced security mechanism for surveillance of students' activities, and also makes provisions for regular and mandatory checks to confirm compliance and enforcement of the mechanism, and enforces strict admission criteria, including maintenance of a profile of alleged perpetrators of arson to ensure that they do not escape liability by transferring to other schools without proper screening. If you're just joining us, these are live pictures from the National Assembly, where business is about to begin. This broadcast is brought to you by PBU in conjunction with KBC.
Let us pray. Almighty God, who in your wisdom and goodness have appointed the offices of leaders and parliaments for the welfare of society and the just government of the people, we beseech you to behold with your abundant favor as your servants, whom you have been pleased to call to the performance of important trusts in this republic. Let your blessings descend upon us here assembled, and grant that we treat and consider all matters that shall come under our deliberation in so just and faithful a manner as to promote your honor and glory, and to advance the peace, prosperity, and welfare of our country and of those whose interest you have committed to our charge. Amen. Honorable members, we definitely need quorum, and I therefore order for the quorum bell to be rung for 10 minutes.
Also scheduled for debate this morning is a motion by Honorable Owen Baya seeking the revival of the cashew nut subsector in Kenya. The debate on this had already begun. The time allocated remaining is 1 hour, 3 minutes, and this motion will be seeking to urge the government through the House to put in place measures to revive the cashew nut industry in the country. Honorable Baya says that aware that agriculture is the mainstay of the Kenyan economy, contributing to food security and employment of rural households. Further aware that cashew nuts are mainly grown in the coast region of Kenya, producing about 10,000 metric tons of the nuts valued at 264.9 million, recognizing that Kenya has a potential to produce more than 63,000 metric tons valued at over 1 billion shillings, noting that the subsector has the potential to create many employment opportunities through value addition and fetch the exchequer millions of shillings through exports. The member is deeply concerned that cashew nut farming in Kenya has continued to face key challenges, among them low producer prices, which has seen many farmers cut down their trees, appreciating that Kilifi, a region at the coast of Kenya, used to be a major producer of cashew nuts in the 1980s, but the production has since dwindled, which led to, among other things, the fraudulent sale of Kilifi cashew nuts factory, loss of livelihood for the farmers, and subsequently increased poverty levels. This House urges that the government put in place measures to revive the cashew nut industry in the country. Also in the order of business this morning is a motion by the Honorable Gideon Keter on the establishment of a national rugby union stadium in the country and high-performance centers of excellence in every region. That this House urges the national government to establish a national rugby union stadium in the country and high-performance centers of excellence in every region, with a view to providing quality sporting infrastructure, promoting the sport, and providing facilities where talent scouted can be nurtured. The order of business this morning is also the second reading of the Constitution of Kenya Amendment Bill number 2. That is the National Assembly Bill number 5 of 2018. This particular bill has been authored by Kiminini Member of Parliament Chris Omalo. The principal object of this bill is to amend Article 101, subsection 1, Article 136, subsection 2A, Article 177, subsection 1A, and Article 180, subsection 1 of the Constitution of Kenya by changing the existing date for the general election for members of Parliament, the President, Member of County Assembly, and the county governors and deputy governors from second Tuesday of August in every fifth year to third Monday in December in every fifth year. The bill seeks to introduce a new date for conducting a general election that will be more favorable to Kenya's circumstances. This is according to Honorable Chris Wamalo, who is the author of this particular bill. The member argues that the enactment or the amendment of this particular section is to ensure that the date of elections reflect the unique circumstances and tradition of Kenya. The current date for the general elections unduly disrupts the education calendar and, most importantly, the conduction of national examination in case of either a fresh election or a runoff or an invalidation of a presidential election. Also, the tradition of reading the budget concurrently in East Africa has been disrupted by the current election date. This is according to Honorable Chris Omalo. The amendment seeks to restore the tourism high season and the aspiration of a section of Kenyans who are not able to get time out of their busy schedules to take part in the general elections at their places of preference. The amendment will also clarify and put to rest all doubts regarding the exact date of the next general elections and the term of the current parliament. We are waiting for quorum to be achieved. The number required for business to begin is 50, and as at now, that number has not yet been achieved, so the quorum bell is still ringing. Also in the order of business this morning is a motion by Honorable Jessica Mbalu, and the motion regards the construction of post-trauma care facilities for survivors of sexual and gender-based violence. That this House urges the national government to set aside funds to facilitate the construction of post-trauma care facilities and ensure existing ones are rehabilitated and equipped to offer temporary stay for survivors of sexual and gender-based violence across the country. This particular motion will be moved by the Honourable Member Jessica Mbalu. The Honourable Member Mishi Jumamboko also has a motion in the order of business this morning, and it's on the establishment of special needs primary and secondary schools in every constituency. That this House urges the government through the Ministry of Education to establish a special needs unit in every primary and secondary schools. We are waiting for quorum to be achieved because at now business cannot begin, and as you can see on the screen, the members are walking in, albeit one by one, and a lot of activities happening, and there quorum has been achieved.
Order, members. Order. Honorable members. Honorable members. Order. Order, members. We are ready to begin. We are ready to begin the business of the day. I think it's enough of the greetings and niceties. We can now begin.
Order number 1, administration of oath. Order number 2, communication from the chair. Order number 3, messages. Order number 4, petitions. Order number 5, papers.
Honorable Leader of Majority. Please give the mic to the Leader of Majority.
Honorable Madam Speaker, I beg to lay the following papers on the table of the House today, Wednesday, August 1st, 2018. 1, the legal notice number 140 relating to the Public Finance Management (Tourism Promotion Fund) Regulations 2018. Number 2, legal notice number 143 relating to the Air Passenger Service Charge Act Apportionment Order of 2018. Thank you.
Very well. The two are duly referred to the Departmental Committee on Finance and National Planning. Next order.
Order number 6, notices of motion.
Honorable Tom Oluoch.
Madam Speaker, I beg to give notice of the following motion, that where that 70% of Kenya's population is under 35 years of age, and that overall unemployment among the youths is at 55%, cognizance of the government's plan in the Big Four agenda aimed at creating 1.3 million manufacturing jobs by 2022, appreciating that Article 260 of the Constitution of Kenya and the Public Finance Management Act, National Government Affirmative Action Fund, Regulation 2016, supports the affirmative action for the youth, aware that in the Appropriation Act 2018, youth empowerment programs were only allocated a sum of Kenya shillings 7.3 billion. This House urges that the government declares youth unemployment a national disaster and further establish a youth fund of at least 5% of the national revenue collected each year to be administered by an authority or commission for purposes of youth empowerment and employment. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Okay, let's move to the next order.
Order number 7, statements. Order number 8, motion. Installation of CCTV cameras in all public secondary schools. Question to be put.
Order members, order Leader of Majority. Honorable Leader of Majority. Order. Honorable members, I'm going on to put the question on this particular motion, that aware of the increased cases of insecurity in schools, including the regrettable cases of defilement and rape that have been reported in various schools, with the most recent case being reported in Moi Girls School, Nairobi, where a student was raped. Further aware that incidences of buildings in public secondary schools being touched by unruly students over time have been numerous. Concerned that most perpetrators of the dastardly acts of defilement, rape, and arson in schools go unpunished due to the difficulty in establishing a nexus between them and the acts, and therefore many of the suspects behind the said crimes evade responsibility. Cognizant of the duty to protect the dignity, preserve the lives of innocent students, and protect school properties from the threat posed by the crimes, appreciating the role of information communications technology, ICT, in enhancing security surveillance, this House urges that the government speedily rolls out installation of closed-circuit television, CCTV cameras, in strategic locations in all public secondary schools as an enhanced security mechanism for surveillance of students' activities, makes provision for regular and mandatory checks to confirm compliance and enforcement of the mechanism, and enforces strict admission criteria, including maintenance of a profile of alleged perpetrators of arson to ensure that they do not escape liability by transferring to other schools without proper screening. Will as many as are of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as are of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Next order.
Order number 9, motion. Revival of the Kenya Cashew nut subsector in Kenya.
Honorable members, we are resuming debate, which was interrupted last week. So we have a balance of 1 hour and 3 minutes. And we had a total number of 10 members, excluding the mover and seconder, 10 members who had already contributed to this one. And I hope they remember themselves so that you don't sneak yourself back into contributing. I have a list of 13 requests. We'll start with Honorable Tongi Nyagaka. Honorable Tongi.
Madam Speaker, I rise to support this motion, aware that Kenya is an agricultural country where investment in agriculture pays and pays well. Madam Speaker, we are aware that Kenya predominantly is committed to farming, not because because our people are trained well in that industry, but because it's one of the low-hanging fruit we have as a country. And therefore, Madam Speaker, it's only fair that we, as a country, we make a deliberate decisions on how we are going to enhance the agricultural farming, how we are going to modernize it, how we are going to make it more productive, so that our people who are involved in the farming industry will be able to get the benefits therein, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, we are in a session such as this where Kenyans are hurting because, Madam Speaker, we have allowed ourselves to get imported food. We have allowed ourselves to get things from outside Kenya, which sometimes are not of very good quality, Madam Speaker. If we will empower our farmers locally to produce the maize, produce the cashew nuts, among other cash crops, Madam Speaker, we are not only going to empower our people, but we are also going to improve on our foreign exchange, because this will generate some money for the country. We'll be able to grow our taxes, we'll be able to grow our people, and even it follows that our children will be able to get quality education, Madam Speaker. Because, Madam Speaker, can I get some protection? I have a lot of distraction from my neighbor here.
Order members, please let the honorable member debate in peace. Honorable Kadhambi and company.
He was consulting. He's actually looking for the mic, and I'm telling you, we have now new technology.
What's that?
He was consulting. He needs some mic. So I've told him that we have new technology of the rap.
You can even exchange emails instead of talking.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. He's my good friend and one of my advisors, a man that I'm so very proud of. Honorable Commander, the senior guy we have around. So, Madam Speaker, as I was saying, farming is a key industry in Kenya, and all of us have a duty to ensure that we succeed in it. Because when I was growing up as a young man, Madam Speaker, I remember my mom would take us to the farm. But now looking back and knowing, having benchmarked with the rest of the world how they're doing farming, I have a feeling that we would have done it better. We'll have improved that kind of farming for the good of our family, for the good of the country. Even our taxes would have gone up. Because I remember in those days we used to grow a lot of cash crop. Coffee was such one. Pyrethrum was also one. Maize crop was a crop that we all grew. But we were not doing it in a modern way where we'd be able to get value for our money and time. Madam Speaker, I urge that we set aside the budget as a government where we are going to invest in terms of civic education and agricultural training to our people so that they will appreciate farming. Because, Madam Speaker, if you go to our schools today and you speak to the children who are in school, ask them what is it they want to be when they finish school, very few of them will say they want to be farmers. And that's because you have not made farming attractive. That's because you have not made farming paying, lucrative. And I think it's time we do that. Because I was watching on TV last night, and I saw some farming in Netherlands, where a farmer has about 200 animals in an acre of a farm. And as we have thousands and thousands of acres, but the kind of farming we are doing there, the kind of cows we are keeping in those farms, cannot be compared with what is happening elsewhere in the world. Because now the world is competitive, the world is a global village. We cannot keep doing things the way we were doing before and expect to see something different. So, Madam Speaker, I urge that we set aside some resources so that we not only help the people of the coast, but we also identify some other parts of the country where we can, take advantage of the climates there. Madam Speaker, like in Kisii, bananas are grown, and they're growing naturally. with minimal effort, you are able to grow very good quality of bananas, Madam Speaker. But what is it that we are doing with that banana, Madam Speaker? If you go to my constituency, Nyaribari Church, Madam Speaker, on your way to Kisii Town near Keumbu there's lots of bananas, some of which go to waste, Madam Speaker, just because you as a country, we have not invested in a system, in the systems of harvesting the banana and keeping it safe so that we can use it in future. Madam Speaker, we harvest every single day, and the harvest goes to waste because we don't have storage capacity, we don't have cooling system, and Madam Speaker, I urge that we identify those regions and set aside some resources which will then help those farmers to be able to harvest their crops and keep it for posterity until such a time it's going to be required to be used, and we are able to identify the market for our people to get the best prices they can. I was in China a couple of months ago, Madam Speaker, and we were taken to some farming, and I saw how they're doing their farming. No wonder they're flooding our markets here, Madam Speaker, because the government has gone out of its way to ensure that whatever it is they're harvesting, Madam Speaker, the government takes care of investing, storing the food and looking for the market for their crop. And we should do that, Madam Speaker. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. All we need to do is copy, paste, and we'll be able to succeed, Madam Speaker. With those few remarks, Madam Speaker, I support the motion, and I hope that we'll be able to use it for the country, for the good of the country, and use it to enhance the economy. Our taxes will improve, and our youths will be able to get employment, because then we are going to have, we'll have addressed the issue of unemployment, which is a major concern to us all as a nation. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
All right. Before we move on, I would like for us to take time to welcome some students who are at the public and speakers gallery. One, we have St. Vincent de Paul Mosocho. They are from Kitutu Chache constituency in Kisii. Let us welcome the students from Kitutu Chache. We also have Chepsir High School from Kipkelion East, Kericho. We have students from Kwamusheru in Gatundu South in Kiambu. Welcome. We also have Barsaloi Arid Zone Primary School all the way from Samburu North in Samburu County. Welcome. Honorable Andrew Mwadime.
Shukran, Mheshimiwa Spika, kwa hii fursa. Mwanzo kabisa, kufufua kilimo ya korosho ni kupunguza tabu za Kenya.
Order, Honorable Tongi. And the other honorable member, I don't know his name. Please, you cannot even console from where you're sitting across the aisle. So let us have members have their peaceful time to contribute.
Asante Mheshimiwa Spika kwa kuingilia kati kupunguza hizo kelele za wenzangu hapo. Vile vile Mheshimiwa Spika, kabla sijaanza kuendelea kuongea, ningependa pia kusifu bunge kwa kutuletea aina ya tarakishi hapa. Ingawaje waiboreshe zaidi, iwe na mambo mengi, hoja zote ziwe ndani ya hii takirishi. Mheshimiwa Spika, wale ambao walikuwa miaka ya 80, wakati kile kiwanda kilikuwa kinafanya kazi, watu wengi sana walikuwa wameajiriwa na kile kiwanda. Na si watu wa Kilifi tu pekee, ilikuwa na Wakenya wengi kwa ujumla. Watu wa Lamu, watu wa Tana River, watu wa Kwale, watu wa Taita, watu wa Mombasa, na Wakenya wengine kote nchini walikuwa wameandikwa. Walikuwa ni watu wengi. Vile vile kule mashinani kina mama walikuwa na shughuli, manake walikuwa wanashughulikia hizi korosho. Kina baba walikuwa wanashughulikia hizi korosho. Masuala ya madaharati wakati ule yalikuwa kidogo, manake watu walikuwa na shughuli wanafanya. Baada hichi kiwanda kuvunjika, basi hapo mambo yamekuwa mabaya sana kule Kilifi. Manake Kilifi hii ndio ilikuwa wanashughulikia zaidi kilimo cha korosho. Manake mapato yao mengi yalikuwa yanatokezea kwa korosho. Ni vyema serikali itambue kwamba kazi zilikuwa zinatokezea hapo, vile vile lishe kwa watu wa Kilifi ilikuwa inatokezea hapo, hata mapato makubwa yalikuwa yanatokezea hapo. So kufufua hichi kiwanda kitasaidia nchi kwa ukubwa, manake vijana watapata makazi, lishe kwa wenyeji pale itakuwa sawa sawa, vile vile nchi itapata ushuru mkubwa. Hata ninashangaa juzi nachukua ndege kutoka Nairobi kwenda Mombasa, korosho niliona katika kipaketi, nikamuuliza yule mwanadada mmoja anazisavu, nikamuuliza hii paketi siku hizi inauzwa hela ngapi? Akashangaza sana, ati inauzwa 2,000. Ni kwa sababu hazitoki Kilifi, hazitoki Kenya. Wakati zilikuwa zinatoka Kenya, hizi korosho zilikuwa bei ndogo na nilishe nzuri. Lakini tangu hicho kiwanda kivunjike, hakuna mtu amefuatilizia. Hata ninamshukuru ndugu yangu Owen kwa kufufua hili swala. Manake hichi kiwanda kikifufuka, basi mfahamu maelfu na maelfu ya mama, ya wazee, vijana watapata kazi hapa. Vile vile Kenya tutakuwa tunaongeza mapato yetu kama nchi kwa njia ya kupata ushuru. Mheshimiwa Spika, hii korosho, manake umesikia maswala ya madarati, pwani yamezidi. Ni maswala kama haya. Manake viwanda kama hivi vikisema vinainuliwa, na kwengine hata kule Ramisi wafike kule ule ya askari ifufuliwe kisawa sawa, utakuta maswala mengi katika pwani, watu watakuwa wako sambamba na Wakenya wote kwa ujumla. Wenzangu wamechangia sana, singependa pia kurejelea, lakini nimeshukuru kwa kunipa hii fursa na ninaunga hii hoja kwa dhati kabisa. Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika.
Honorable Mbogo Menza, member for Kisauni.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to contribute to this important motion that has been brought to the floor by Honorable Owen Baya, the Member of Parliament for Kilifi South, Kilifi North. Madam Speaker, we as a country, we are blessed to have such a long coastline that runs from Lunga in Kwale County to Kiunga in Lamu County. The entire coastline and the coast region as a whole, we are blessed to have a tropical weather that runs from January to December with very minimal rainfalls. This weather makes it very suitable to grow the cashew nut tree and the other tropical trees like coconut, the mango trees, and the rest. The coconut tree, there are 3 distinct items that identifies we as the people of Coast Province. And one of them is the cashew nut tree. The second is the coconut tree. And the third one is the Indian Ocean. These 3 elements, they are very unique to the coastal people. But Madam Speaker, the cashew nut tree was a pride of the coastal people. Many shambas in Coast Province, they were dotted and they were full of these cashew nut trees many years back. In the 80s, 90s, and up to the year 2000, the cashew nut tree was our pride. And it was our pride because of the Kenya Cashew Nut Factory plant that was located in Kilifi County. But in the years 2000, the plant collapsed. And since then, there have been very minimal effort to revive this plant. And because of this collapse of the plant, many farmers, the small-scale farmers in Kilifi County and other parts of the Coast Province, who were entirely depending on the cashew nut plant as a source of revenue, they lost the motivation to continue growing this plant. Madam Speaker, the cashew nut tree, it is a hardy and tolerant tree that does not require a lot of rain. Today, if you look at what is happening in Coast Province, because of the lack of motivation, many people, many small-scale farmers have decided to chop off their cashew nut trees because they have no means of actually getting a ready market for what they grow. Madam Speaker, I'll wish to give you a good example of what is happening in Africa. A country like Cote d'Ivoire, a former Ivory Coast, it is a country in West Africa. This country, the government of Ivory Coast, they realized the value of the cashew nut tree, and they came up with an ambitious 5-year plan. In 2013, Ivory Coast grew 350,000 tons of cashew nut. By 2017, it doubled to 711,000 tons. And by this year, the target of producing 750,000 tons. Today, Ivory Coast is the #1 producer of cashew nuts in the world. They have surpassed India. Why? Because the government realized the value of the cashew nut tree. It is one of the highest foreign honor for the country of Ivory Coast. And in fact, they have labeled it, they call it the gray gold, like the way we call it the black gold for the people of Saudi Arabia for the crude oil. So Ivory Coast, they have named it gray gold. This industry in Ivory Coast, it has employed 1.5 million people, directly and indirectly. But it is because the government came up with that ambitious plan and to focus the resources in this industry. So my question is, why can't we as a government, why can't we as a country reallocate some funds and revive these industries? Because today, in Coast Province, we have one plant in Kilifi, and there's another one which stalled halfway in Kwale. And the one in Kwale, it only requires about 600 million to revive that plant. And this is what is happening in the country. If you look at what is happening in Western Kenya with the sugarcane, all the industries have collapsed. And yet, we are more focusing on the Big Four agenda, and one of them is the industrialization. How can we achieve that when we have our own industries like the cashew nuts and the sugarcane industry, which have collapsed, and yet we are focusing more on the SGR, putting out billions of shillings, extending the SGR? Why can't we suspend that and allocate those funds to revive these industries? So, Madam Speaker, cashew nuts is a luxury nut. And from what Honorable Mwadime just said, when you fly the KQ to Mombasa, I think if you're lucky, you get like a small packet of nuts, mixed nuts. And the other day, I took time to count the number of nuts in that packet. And you'll be shocked. In that packet, there were 14 nuts of macadamia and 6 nuts of cashew nuts, which actually it tells you it is a luxury product. And yet, we as a country, we've closed our eyes and let this one just go down the drain. So, Madam Speaker, it is my humble request that we as a House, we put a lot of focus to revive this plan so that we can be able to start realizing the Big Four agenda, which on top of it is the industrialization of our country. And we be able now to move away from the reliance, 100% reliance on agricultural, and move away to industrialization. Madam Speaker, with those few remarks, I strongly support this motion. Thank you.
Okay, Honorable Member. Did you say there are only 14 pieces usually in the KQ packet?
Macadamia nuts.
A very interesting revelation, because when you combine that with the what Honorable Mwadime says that it costs 2,000 shillings. It goes to explain the
No,
value.
it's not. It is you get a packet of mixed nuts in the plane. 14 pieces of macadamia and 6 of cashew nuts. And it costs 2,000 shillings.
And they're never, you can never have enough of them, of one packet. On this side, we have Honorable Sankok. Honorable Dory, I know you've been accidentally shut off, but I'll come back to you. Honorable Sankok.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. And this is a very important motion that we all need to support because Kenya have a potential of producing more than 63,000 metric tons of cashew nuts. But at the moment, Honorable Speaker, we are just producing around 10,000 metric tons of cashew nuts. Madam Speaker, it is also good to note that cashew nut is a very fast-growing tree with a strong rooting system that can withstand drought, and the tree is evergreen. Hence, as we conserve more forests and other forests, this cashew nut tree, Madam Speaker, will be very good in increasing our forest cover because it grows to about 12 meters in height. Honorable Speaker, it is also good to note that cashew nut grow on tropical weather, that at times these conditions are not favorable for other plants, especially on the coast region and parts of Tharaka Nithi that recently adapted also the growth of cashew nuts. Cashew nut trees, Madam Speaker, grow very fast and also withstand such drought condition and very little rainfall. And our country being a sizable percentage of our country sitting on semi-arid and arid areas, then this one is the plan that we need to facilitate as a country so that our people can have some sustainable earning. Madam Speaker, cashew nut tree also grows very well in sandy areas. And I'm sure it is only that we did not do enough research because sandy areas of Machakos, Kitui, and some regions, including even some parts of Masai Mara, which are blessed with a lot of sun, then this tree can grow well in those regions and become a livelihood to thousands, if not millions, of Kenyans. Honorable Speaker, this is a form of economic empowerment to our communities, and especially from the coast region. And it is saddening to note that most of these trees have been cut down because of lack of the link between the producers and the market. And Madam Speaker, we have had a lot of brokers in farming, not only cashew nuts, but even of our wheat, barley, potatoes. And these brokers are the ones that are bringing down our farming system. Even in sugarcane farming, Honorable Speaker, when we have all these brokers, they really make sure that they maximize on their own personal profit, but minimize on the earnings of the producers. And when the producers don't get any profit from their farm, then, Madam Speaker, they are bound to reject such product. And that is what have happened in uprooting of trees of cashew nuts, and even some people changing their farming from sugarcane farming to maize farming, and so on, because of these brokers. So, Madam Speaker, I also like the government to come in now and crack a whip on these brokers, and the government to invest a lot of money. Of course, not taking money from SGR, because we still need the standard gauge railway, because we need to our infrastructure, because you cannot even transport those cashew nuts using donkeys. So we need those infrastructure, but to invest a lot in manufacturing and having a direct link to the producers. Madam Speaker, it is also important to note that cashew nut, and that is why it is very expensive, Madam Speaker, that 14 pieces can cost as high as 2,000, yet millions of pieces of potatoes may not even cost that amount. Madam Speaker, it is worth to know the nutritional value of cashew nuts. Cashew nuts have calcium, phosphorus, potassium, sodium, zinc, fiber, total fat that does not involve cholesterol, vitamin C, and other nutrients that are very important for the livelihood of human beings. So, Madam Speaker, this is a very important plan that we need to invest a lot as a country, and as a house that make law, we should actually come up with the legislative framework which can sustain the cashew nut farming and encourage most farmers to, especially in the arid and semi-arid areas, the sandy areas and the coastal region and Tharaka Nithi, so that they can invest on cashew nuts. You know, once the market is ready, once the farmers are happy with the government effort to invest on industries and factories of cashew nuts, I'm quite sure all our citizens are ready and willing to make profit. So they will turn into cashew nut farming, which then will give us economic muscles as well as give us nutritional value. So, Madam Speaker, I really do support this motion. Thank you.
Honorable member from Sambweni, Honorable Ramadhani.
Asante sana Mheshimiwa Speaker. Nasimama kuchangia mswada ambao Mheshimiwa Owen ameeleta kuhusu juu ya masuala ya korosho. Mheshimiwa Speaker, kwanza mimi nataka nichangie nikisema ya kwamba ufufuzi wa suala la korosho ni jambo ambalo litasaidia sana sehemu ambazo kwa mara nyingi zimekuwa zikikuzwa mmea huu kwa muda mrefu na ukaachiliwa. Sasa katika sehemu zile ukiangalia hali ya umaskini imetanda. Wale wakuzaji wa mmea huu ama walikuwa wakitegemea mmea huu wamerudi sana chini kimaisha. Kwa hivyo ikiwa tutaangazia ama serikali itaangazia kufufua upandaji wa korosho, utasaidia hali ya umaskini katika sehemu hizi, na pia utakuwa moja kwa moja umebuni ajira katika sehemu ambazo zinakuzwa mmea huu. Vile vile, Mheshimiwa Speaker, nataka changia nikisema ya kwamba sio kubuni ajira peke yake katika sehemu ambazo zinakuzwa mmea huu, lakini Mheshimiwa Speaker, ni kwamba mmea huu ukiwa utakuzwa kisawasawa na kupewa kipawa mbele, ni kumaanisha kwa mfano kama sehemu zile za pwani ambazo sana sehemu zile tunakuza mmea wa mnazi, korosho na mwembe, itawezesha mmea huu kukuza shehena katika bandari ambayo imenitegemeo kubwa la nchi hii ya Kenya, ili kupata ushuru na kuendeleza masuala mengine ya kitaifa. Mheshimiwa Speaker, vile vile ukuzaji ama ufufuaji wa mmea wa korosho utasaidia katika sehemu zile ambazo zinakuza korosho pia kupunguza ufujaji ama uuzaji wa ardhi kwa bei duni. Mheshimiwa Speaker, ni kwamba sehemu za pwani sisi tegemeo letu kubwa ni mbegu tatu kama nilivyosema awali: mnazi, mkorosho na mwembe. Na wengi kama sehemu zile za Kwale, toka mkorosho uuliwe kabisa ama haukuzwi, imesababisha kizazi kikubwa, kwa sababu hawana pato lolote la kuendeleza maisha yao, kuuza ardhi zao kwa bei duni ama bei ya chini zaidi ili weza kujikimu kimaisha. Kwa hiyo suala hili nataka kuliunga mkono nikisema ya kwamba tufufue mkorosho, ama serikali ipeane kipaumbele katika ufufuzi wa mkorosho ili kuwezesha zile ardhi ambazo zimebakia katika sehemu ambazo kunakuzwa mmea hii, ili tumwezeshe yule mwananchi aweze kujimiliki kibinafsi. Mheshimiwa Spika, Wizara ya Kilimo ni lazima ihakikishe imeangazia katika ufufuzi wa viwanda vya korosho, kile ambavyo vilikuwa awali kama kiwanda cha Kilifi, na viwanda hivi vimesaidia pakubwa sana. Na Mheshimiwa Spika, nataka nichangie nikisema ya kwamba isiangalie kiwanda cha Kilifi peke yake. Serikali ama Wizara ya Kilimo iweke taratibu kiasi cha kwamba kila sehemu kuna kukuzwa korosho kuwe kutawekwa sehemu ama viwanda hata kama ni vidogo vya kumwezesha yule mkuzaji ama mkulima ili aweze kuuza mazao yake ama kufikia mahali ambako atauza mazao yake kwa njia ya urahisi. Nikitoa mfano kama wa Kwale, nataka niseme ya kwamba Kwale kiwanda cha korosho kile katika historia ni kwamba ni kiwanda cha kibinafsi, na ndio maana hata tulipokuwa na gavana wetu tukaona yeye hatoweka pesa ambayo ni ya serikali katika kiwanda cha kibinafsi, lakini ni jukumu letu la kuhakikisha tukuze mkorosho huu ama tukuze mmea huu, lakini pale pale Wizara ya Kilimo iwe imetenga pato maalum la kuhakikisha kila sehemu katika nchi hii, kule Tarakanithi, kule Pwani na sehemu nyingine tofauti ambazo zinakuza korosho, ili kuwe na pato ambalo kutajengwa viwanda vidogo vidogo, wakulima wawezeshwe kuuza mapato yao. Vile vile kupitia Wizara ya Kilimo, Mheshimiwa Spika, ni kwamba tuna ufahamu kamili ya kwamba kuna mbegu maalumu ambazo zimeletwa ambazo ni za kukuza ama kuinua, kuwapa nguvu wakulima. Kuna mbegu ya mkorosho, kuna mbegu ya mnazi. Hizi mbegu zimeletwa ambazo ukuaji wake utakuwa kwa miaka 3. Kwa hivyo Mheshimiwa Spika, kupitia Wizara ya Kilimo tunataka iangazie sana sehemu ambazo zinakuza mbegu hii, zinakuza mimea hii, ili wawezeshwe wakulima kupatiwa mbegu ambazo zitawasaidia katika miaka 3 waweze kubadilisha hali zao za kimaisha. Nikubalizia Mheshimiwa Spika, nataka niseme ya kwamba Mheshimiwa Mbogo wa Kisauni amesema kwamba korosho zinaliwa katika ndege, lakini nataka nitofautiane na yeye. Huyu rafiki yangu mara nyingi yeye anapanda ndege ya 540 na kuna korosho inapatianwa pale. Kwa hivyo hayo ni maneno ambayo si ya ukweli. Mimi nataka niunge mkono mswada huu ambao ni wa korosho. Asante sana.
Sijui kama hiyo ni ukweli Mheshimiwa, ya kwamba wewe unasafiri tu kwa 540. Lakini nafikiri lakini hata kwa basi unaweza nunua ukisafiri kwa basi. Kwa hivyo hamna shida ya 540. Tuende kwa upande huu, tuko na Mheshimiwa Tekla Tum Nandi.
I'll contribute in the next Honorable Speaker.
Honorable members, if you're not contributing to this particular one, I know a member who has even confessed that I picked them and they were not ready for this one, but they spoke anyway. So if you're not ready for this one, please, you can take out your card so that we can prioritize those who want to contribute to this one. Let's have Honorable Nyasuna.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for this opportunity to contribute to this very important motion. I'd like to thank the Honorable Owen Yabaya, Member of Parliament for Kilifi South, for bringing this very important motion. Madam Speaker, agriculture is a mainstay for many of our communities. And if you look at the coast currently, now that the cashew nut industries have gone down, really, there's no industry to speak about at the coast. Whatever is grown for small-scale sales, but mainly for consumption at home. Madam Speaker, cashew nut is prized. In fact, many cuisines around the world will use cashew nut. Even if you go to Chinese, there's always that chicken and cashew nut on the menu. It is very tasty. Even if you go to Indian cuisine, it will have cashew nut. In fact, in places, Madam Speaker, cashew nut, the cashew fruit is even used for making juice. There's also cashew milk. So cashew nut is really, really a prized a commodity that this government should consider seriously investing in the industry. And Madam Speaker, if you look at the motion, it says that we have a potential to produce 63,000 metric tons valued at 1 billion. So if an economy like the coast alone is producing 1 billion a year, then we are definitely moving somewhere. So Madam Speaker, we must look at how to invest and really this urging, I always speak to motions, and this issue of urging, I think we must move away from urging and just take action. And I want to really urge, not really urge, I want to ask Honorable Bayer to move this to the next level of a bill and even a budget, you know, put in money during the budget process so that we're doing something that has immediate result. But if the ministry, the Committee on Implementation, the Ministry of Agriculture is also listening, we want to really move this forward. Madam Speaker, but what we are dealing with here is not just about cashew nut. We are looking at a global problem of our agricultural products. Whether you look at cotton in the Nyanza region, when we were growing up, Madam Speaker, we used to pick cotton and get money immediately. We had industries such as Kikomi that would process cotton. But you realize that when the floodgates were opened for import of second-hand clothes, the industries went down, whether it was Kikomi or whether it was Rivertex, which we are trying to revive right now. Madam Speaker, we must look at it as seriously as possible. Look at sugarcane and the sugar belt. Look at what has happened. The industries are on their knees. Yet we are importing an avalanche of sugar. We have sugar in this country, we are told that is enough to take us for 5 years. What will happen to the sugarcane farmers, Madam Speaker? I'm just using the platform of this motion to say that we really, really need to deal with this issue, because manufacturing is one of the big four agenda. You cannot manufacture without raw materials. And when we are looking at the big four manufacturing, we must look at manufacturing textiles, we must look at manufacturing products from products such as cashew nuts, we must look at manufacturing, you know, as much as we can. So, Madam Speaker, I wanted to really just add my voice and support this motion and say that let us move it to the next level. After urging, let us now bring, during the budget process, money to revive our cashew nut industries. And we will be looking at not just cashew nut industries, but we will be looking at other products that can really help in boosting the economic mainstay of our people. Madam Speaker, with those many remarks, I support.
Very well. And I think, Honorable Wanga, you've raised a very critical point. Because when we talk of urging in the motions, you know, you can have an urge for something, but whether or not it comes to a reality is 50-50. But once it's augmented to a bill, which I think is an avenue which is available to members, then a very important point of concern like this one can really have a high probability of actualization. Let's have Mheshimiwa Tandaza Sawa from Matuga constituency. Samahani, nafikiri jina lako lilipotea kwa mtandao kidogo.
Yeah. Asante sana Madam Speaker kwa kunipatia nafasi kuchangia, kuunga mkono, na kwangu sio kuunga mkono tu. Ningetaka ijulikane kwamba mbali na kuunga mkono, hata niko tayari kuunga miguu mswada huu wa maana sana wa korosho. Zao hili la korosho, watu wanalizungumzia tu juu ya korosho za kula, lakini mmea mzima kwa ujumla una manufaa. Kwamba mkorosho kwanza huanza kutoa tunda, ambalo tunda hili lingekuwa saa hizi badala ya watu tu kwenda mahoteli na kunywa labda juice ya pesheni na avocado, wangekuwa pia wanakunywa juice ya bibo, kwa sababu lile tunda lake linaitwa bibo, linatoa juice mzuri sana ambalo ina manufaa kuliko hizi juices ambazo tumezizoea. Pia mmea huu korosho, mbali na ile inayoliwa, huwa inatoa mafuta. Lile ganda lake lina uwezo wa kusagwa na kutoa mafuta ambayo yana maana nyingi. Tukijulishwa hapo awali kwamba ati ilikuwa ikitumiwa kama mafuta ya kuendesha ndege. Sijui kama utafiti huo ulifikia kuthibitishwa, lakini ni kwamba zao hili linatoa mafuta na ni ya maana. Kihistoria ni kwamba Mwenyezi Mungu hakubagua watu wa pwani. Wakati alipowezesha wenzetu wa huku bara kuwa na mzao wa kahawa na majani chai, kule pwani waliweza kuweka mazao haya ya mmea wa korosho na minazi. La kushangaza ni kwamba kihistoria, wakati mzao wa kahawa na majani chai ulipowekewa boards mbalimbali, ikikuwa kama mzao wa kahawa una Coffee Board of Kenya, una Coffee Research Foundation, mazao haya ya pwani hayakuweza kupatiwa bodi kama hizo. Kwa hivyo kupitia mswada huu ninapouunga mkono, sio kwamba tu wafufue, lakini katika njia mojawapo ya kufufua ni kuona kwamba pia wanaweza kutengeneza vitengo hivi, kuwe na Cashew Nut Board of Kenya, kuwe na Cashew Nut Research Foundation na vitengo vingine ambavyo vitaweza kusimamia ukuzaji na ufufuzi wa zao hili. Mzao wa korosho hauko Kilifi peke yake, uko maeneo ya Lamu, na ukija maeneo ya Kwale, hasa katika maeneo yangu bunge ya Matuga, utakuta ilikuwa ni mzao ambao ulikuwa unatiliwa maanani mpaka ulipofika miaka ya 80 kukaweza kujengwa kiwanda cha pili cha kuweza kutengeneza korosho. Kiwanda hiki hakikuweza kumalizika kwa sababu ni wakati huo huo ndio ambapo pia zao la korosho liliweza kushuka chini kwa sababu ya bei, na baada ya kile kiwanda cha Kilifi kuweza kubomolewa na kuwa wakulima hawana soko na wakuzi wakaacha zao hili. Kwa hivyo ni jukumu letu kama viongozi kusaidiana kuona kwamba serikali inafufua viwanda, hasa kile cha Kwale. Tukiangalia kwamba maeneo yale ya Kwale, hasa maeneo bunge la Matuga, hakuna kiwanda chingine chochote ambacho kingeweza kutoa ajira. Na moja kwa moja huenda ikawa hii ndio inachangia kuwa labda katika wale barobaro ambao hujiunga na magenge mbalimbali, mpaka yale mengine ya Al-Shabaab ambao watu huyaogofya, huwa yanatoka maeneo ya kule kwangu, kwa sababu hakuna mahali ambapo vijana wanaweza kupata ajira. Na ili hali uwezekano upo ikiwa tutaweza kufufua ukuzi, upandaji na hatimaye kile kiwanda ambacho kiko pale Kwale katika maeneo bunge yangu ya Matuga. Pia sio tu korosho kama wenzangu walivyotanguliza. Kuna mimea mingi ambayo maeneo yale ya pwani yangeshughulikiwa, yangechagia kiasi kikubwa katika hali nzima ya economy ya Kenya. Kwa mfano pia kuna zao moja la mrangi, tunawita mrangi kwa Kiswahili, kimombo ambayo ni biksa. Hili pia linapatikana maeneo yote ya pwani na lina thamani mno. Kiwanda chake ni kimoja ambacho kiko maeneo bunge la kule kwangu Matuga, na pia nacho kimefifia.
Mheshimiwa, sawa, umesema pizza ama
biksa?
Pizza.
B-I-X-A. Ndio kwa kimombo inaitwa hivyo, lakini kwa Kiswahili ni mrangi.
Kwa kimombo ni nini?
Ndio hiyo biksa, lakini Kiswahili inaitwa mrangi. M-R-A-N-G-I, mrangi. Biksa.
Unajua saa ingine Kiswahili hata itachanganya Hansard. Nimesikia kama umesema pizza.
Si pizza. Sio pizza. Ni biksa. Mmea huu unatumika ulimwengu mzima na unatumika kwa chakula ambayo una thamani. Pia ni jukumu la serikali kuona kwamba mmea huu unaweza kukuzwa na kile kiwanda pia kinaweza kupatiwa nguvu kuona kwamba kinaweza kutoa ajira kwa vijana wetu. Ni jukumu la kila mwana Kenya, hasa kupitia utafiti. Manake saa hizi watu wakizungumza ni kama wanafikiria labda korosho iko pwani peke yake, lakini tunajua kwamba utafiti uliofanyika hapo nyuma ulidhihirisha kwamba mmea huu wa korosho unaweza kufanya vizuri maeneo mengine ya Kenya, hasa maeneo yale ya kule Tharaka Nithi ambayo ni maeneo karibu na Meru. Hali kadhalika pia swala la mnazi pia nalo limeweza kudhihirishwa kwamba sio pwani peke yake, lakini hata maeneo mengine, sehemu hata zile za Tharaka Nithi na Meru. Kwa hivyo tukizungumzia mmea huu, ni jukumu, ninawaomba viongozi wenzangu tuweze kulitilia mkazo, tuweze kulipongeza, kwani sio swala la watu wa pwani peke yake, lakini ni swala ambalo lina uwezo wa kusaidia nchi nzima na vijana wetu katika lile janga kubwa la kukosa ajira. Tukaona kwamba agenda ya viwanda inaweza kudhihirisha na kupewa nguvu kupitia mazao haya. Kwa hayo mengi ninaunga mkono na nimetanguliza. Siungi mkono peke yake kwa sababu zao hili linaniathiri kiasi kikubwa, na liunga mkono pamoja na miguu nione kwamba ufufuzi huu unafanyika na wananchi wote wanaweza kunufaika. Asante sana Madam Speaker.
Sawa mheshimiwa, kabla hatujaendelea tutaweza kuwatambua wanafunzi ambao wako pamoja na sisi. Tunao wanafunzi wa shule ya msingi ya Munaine kutoka Othaya, Nyeri County. Karibuni. Tuko na wanafunzi kutoka shule ya msingi ya Ngoshe kutoka Mbeere North, Embu County. Na pia tuko na wanafunzi wa Manguli Primary School kutoka Masinga kule Machakos County. Karibuni. Mheshimiwa mbunge wa Kangema, Mheshimiwa Muturi.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I support the motion, but I have a few riders to it. Member for Matuga said he needs a development authority. We already have a Cashew Nut Development Authority and the Agriculture Act order, which set the factory, the processing factory, which is now moribund, was set 30 years ago. Now, I am supporting the motion, but subject to certain riders. You spoke about 14 to 6 macadamia. Macadamia came to our region about 10 years ago. Now, macadamia has no authority. It is a local initiative. We process privately. But macadamia farming has even now extended. We support Rwanda today, and it's still growing. Now, why? One of the reasons, whether we like it or not, why cashew nut did not take off to the level that was intended. One of the reasons was, and I still remember, there was politics came to it. Two, there was no sufficient interest in it, to the extent that that factory in Cliffy, the cashew nut processing factory, did not have sufficient produce to process. Now, if you want, you need to do a few things to develop cashew nut. We, as a country, the first responsibility we have, we as local leaders, is to sensitize our people through civic education. then encourage mass farming for cashew nuts, and the government then should chip in through extension officers. Then we need infrastructure for Kirifi for dehusking. We need also to extend, like macadamia now, before it goes to process. It has certain infrastructures, like correction centers. We need to embrace this to the extent that if we encourage our people to go to cashew nut farming to the level that can sustain, economy, we need to borrow a leaf. We need to borrow a leaf from Mozambique, which is just not very far from us. We need also to see the way Cuba embraced sugar to the extent that sugar farming is embraced in the curriculum in schools up to university level in Cuba.
I can see an intervention from Honorable Sawa.
Yes.
What is the issue, Honorable Sawa?
Asante sana, Madam Speaker. Is the Honorable Member in order to state that there is a Cashew Nut Development Authority when, for sure, there is none, unless maybe in another country, not in Kenya?
Honorable Muturi, maybe you need to
I stand corrected if I don't have the literature here, but that's what I recall, because if I recall, that years ago, the processing plant used to draw chief executive from the government. The government used to run through an officer nominated by the parastatal authority then existing in Kenya. So I don't remember. I stand corrected. But nevertheless, you do not need an authority. We have no macadamia authority. The Kenya Tea Development Authority that you see is not funded by the government. So your primary objective as farmers of cashew nut, you should drive away of being self-reliant, not asking for government funding. Because really, if you are a farmer, or perhaps you need this extension officer, you do not need much funding. You only need extension officer, and then you must draw interest, because the processor failed because he did not have sufficient produce to process. Thank you.
Very well. Honorable members, you remember that we had only 1 hour and 3 minutes remaining from the previous debate on this motion. And it's time, therefore, to call upon the mover to reply. And he has his 10 minutes. Is Honorable Bayer in the house? Honorable Bayer? I think he automatically forfeits his chance to reply. And I'm going to exercise some discretion. We have 10 minutes. And I'm going to give some members. I'll just distribute 2 minutes. Or is Honorable Bayer in the house? He's not in. So each member going forward, 2 minutes, so that we expend the 10 minutes. Honorable Osotsi.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity to contribute to this very important motion by my good friend, Honorable Bayer. Madam Speaker, cashew nut farming is very important. If we want to ensure we eradicate poverty in rural areas of the coastal region, I think, as other members have said, it will be very critical for the government to invest in improved farming in the cashew nut industry. Madam Speaker, I think also this country must take agriculture very seriously. In terms of the budgets that we give to the Ministry of Agriculture, and in terms of even management of the sector. You remember that since the enactment of the Crops Act in 2013, they set up an AFA authority, which basically amalgamated all regulators in the agriculture industry into one roof. This has had its own challenges, Madam Speaker, because, for example, in the sugar industry, we used to have the Sugar Directorate, the Kenya Sugar Board, but now the Sugar Directorate falls under the AFA authority. This has had a negative impact on the sugar industry. So I think the government should take seriously, even as they seek to improve cashew nut development, it will be very important for the government and all.
Honorable Musheke, 2 minutes. Please give Honorable Musheke the microphone. She's seated next to Honorable Tekla.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to add my voice to the revival of the cashew nut subsector in Kenya, the motion. Madam Speaker, as we've heard from many of the speakers who have spoken before me, it is important to revive this cashew nut subsector because it will help in many areas. It will help by creating employment for our youth. As we all know, an idle mind is a devil's workshop. But through this farming, like in the coast, that is where we have a serious drug menace. And therefore, I believe if there is this farming, it will help by creating some employment for the youth. It will also help improve the local community. Through the income that will be generated, Wananchi will be able to invest in schools, hospitals, and that will help better their lives. Madam Speaker, the cashew nut tree has a well-developed root and can therefore tolerate drought condition, hence it can withstand the unpredictable change in the weather. That is, the climate in Kenya has been experiencing a lot of uncertainties, but that tree is able to withstand any weather. Madam Speaker, also, the cashew nut is very beneficial to the body. It helps eradicate heart problems, and due to the high magnesium content, it can promote healthy bones, and also, we know that health is wealth. Therefore, Madam Speaker, with those few remarks, I wish to support.
Member for Kangundo.
Thank you, Honorable Madam Speaker, to give chance to on this motion of cashew nuts from Honorable Howen for Kilifi. Madam Speaker, climate statistics describe our country as we stand in a cool and a warm, and we get average rain for agriculture. Despite this, Madam Speaker, we don't utilize this chance by promoting our agriculture to give our farmers sustainable produce. Madam Speaker, if we want this country to have an equitable economy or a growing economy, because 60% of our people, they depend with agriculture, we need to promote agricultural products. Madam Speaker, cashew nuts, coffee, tea, cottons, these are the produce which can give this country not only food for our people, also we can get money from export of this produce. But where we lie in this economy, recently, giving a scenario of Kitui County recently, they produced dengue, which they failed to give farmers stabilization and conservative measures. When we get produce, we don't do stabilization and conserving for the market of our people. And Madam Speaker, on supporting this motion, cashew nuts not only can be farmed in coastal region, also they can be extended within the other countries. And that I stand to spur this motion and urge the state of agriculture in this country to consider in promotion of agricultural produce, especially cashew nuts, coffee, tea, and cottons. Thank you.
Honorable Jaldesa.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to contribute. I also want to join my colleagues in congratulating the mover of this motion to bring this very important motion to Parliament. I wish to support by saying that under the Agenda 4 of His Excellency the President of the Republic of Kenya, cashew nut is one of the sectors that will greatly contribute to food security and to the economy of this country. Secondly, Madam Speaker, cashew nut, as has been stated, can grow in tropical weather, which is almost 80% of this country. Madam Speaker, it's not only in cost, but we can grow cashew nuts in the whole of northern Kenya, where we have adequate land and Isiolo, Marsabit, basically arid and semi-arid areas. Madam Speaker, cashew nuts, the Kenyan cashew nuts, is one of its kind in the world. I have been able to carry it as gifts to my friends out of this country, and they have really enjoyed. Madam Speaker, my humble request is for the government to ensure that it gives adequate focus in terms of funding, in terms of marketing and training and benchmarking for farmers. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Lastly, Honorable Dr. Otiende.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I'm in the unhappy position of spoiling the party as I oppose this motion. Madam Speaker, my reasons are twofold. This motion, as drafted and had already indicated to my friend, Honorable Bayer, is of doubtful constitutionality. First, it talks of the coast region. Madam Speaker, there is no coast region in the Constitution or any of the laws we apply currently. Secondly, it talks of the government. Madam Speaker, we have 48 governments. Either we are talking of national government or some specific government. That is not idle, Madam Speaker, knowing that agriculture is now a devolved function. So when we then pass a motion that urges the government and does not indicate whether it's national government or the county government of Kilifi or Mombasa, it is an idle motion. Madam Speaker, I oppose.
Very well, and it's very, very unfortunate that Honorable Bayer is not here, because we've had very, very serious issues raised on this motion, very important, and his forfeiture of his right to respond will actually, I think it will be detrimental to the request by members to augment this motion to the next level, because anyway, he can get it in the Hansard, but I think members should follow through their motions so that you know what next steps to take to actualize, so that we don't reduce it to a talk shop. I think the intention is to actualize the things we debate about. Having said that, I think we have come to I see an intervention from Honorable Paul Mwirigi.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, sir. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I wanted just to request this. Pursuant to studying Honda 53, clause 3, I requested that you defer putting of the question to Honda number 9 to another day. Please, thank you.
Very well, Honorable Mwirigi. And I'll go by that. In consideration of Standing Order 53, we are going to apportion an appropriate date and time for putting the question on this particular motion. And that takes us to the next order.
Order number 10, motion. establishment of a national rugby union stadium in the country and high performance centers of excellence in every region.
Is Honorable Keter here? You have your time to move.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. That aware of the economic, health, social and cultural benefit of sports, further aware that Section 4 of Sports Act 2013 provides the functions of Sports Kenya, which include, amongst others, the establishment, management, development and maintenance of sports facilities. Recognizing that rugby in the country has experienced tremendous growth and is one of the fastest growing sports activities in the country. Appreciating that Kenya Rugby Union management has been instrumental in spearheading the sports regionally and internationally, thus setting the country as a rugby powerhouse globally. Deeply concerned that despite the various achievements and international glory that the sport has brought to the country, Kenya is yet to build a single national rugby stadium. This House urges the national government to establish a national rugby union stadium in the country and high-performance centers of excellence in every region with a view to providing quality sporting infrastructure, promoting the sport, and providing facilities where rugby talents can be nurtured. Madam Speaker, I would also like to take this opportunity to take note of something else also in the sports. The poor organization of our athletes. The one we saw yesterday, they were stranded at Lagos for so many hours. And that is a shame to the country. And that shows a lot about how we handle our sportmen. As a country, we need to take serious these events where our young people are engaging in the region. And it's not the first time such an activity is happening. And I wonder, before they travel, why should they not meet, discuss, share if they have challenges so that we may help them? Because they are citizens and they are young people and they are representing our country. With that, I stand here to move my proposal with great determination and conviction, and hope that this Honorable House shall once again opt to pass this motion that is timely and true reflection of the potential and aspiration of our people, of our young people. Madam Speaker, rugby in Kenya has shown a leap and a bounce since independence. Whereas the first official rugby was recorded in 1909 and the first representative Kenya Games in 1925. It was largely a white man's game, and in the year that followed, Kenya got involved and have never looked back. The Ngong Road grounds of Kenya Rugby Football Union of East Africa is the centerpiece of Kenya rugby history. Gone are the days when rugby was seen as preserved elites. Schools all over the country have now embraced the sport. Clubs have been started or revived in remote areas like in Mount Elgon with the able help of the Kenya Rugby Union. This has been largely successful because of the values that the sport teaches and instills. Madam Speaker, research has shown that rugby developed teamwork, better concentration, discipline, tolerance, and determination. It helps to build a healthy body and instill creativity and promote a healthy mind of our youth. Despite this, rugby is only played semi-professionally in some clubs in Kenya. To promote the quality of the sport, support must be given to ensure that as many clubs as possible are run professionally and the players are engaged as professional. Currently, there are several rugby activities that take place almost across the country, like leagues, competitions, which are nationwide, national sevens, international safari 7, school rugby nationally, regionally, and in East Africa games, KUSA games, under 7s, under 13, under 17, under 20s. Madam Speaker, Kenya has been represented in every Sevens World Cup since 2001. Yet support from the government has been minimal at best. As the sports develops and the nation and its nation following grows, it has come with new demands that must be met. With the little support that the Kenya Rugby Union has received, our players are squarely placed Kenya on global rugby map. They need to be supported in line with the demand of the game, from technologically of human resource, remuneration, facilities, and infrastructure. This will go a long way in enabling our best output as a country. Madam Speaker, rugby has brought national glory to Kenya, and this can't go unmentioned. Members will recall that Collins Injera, a young and unassuming man from Vihiga Boys, became top try scorer in the world while competing for Kenya in the International Rugby Board's 7th circuit. Or when his elder brother and former Kenya team captain, Humphrey Kayange, was involved with other notable individuals. To say nothing of the stature of the world-first global rugby icon, the late John Alamu, who successfully advocated for the return of sevens rugby to the Olympic Games. Madam Speaker, history will judge me harshly if I fail to mention the country's first professional rugby player, Edward Rombo. He turned professional when he moved to UK to play for the Leeds Rhinos in 1990. Since then, only one Lucas Onyango has walked the same path. I think it is sad that as a country, we have not done better than producing 2 world-class players in 28 years. Madam Speaker, the proposed high-performance centers will assist us to produce more professionals who will play locally or abroad after the example of Fiji, Samoa, Tonga, New Zealand, South Africa, just to mention a few. Recently, they wanted even to come to Kenya to come and train with fellow world champions. But sad to be turned away because we don't have a stadium that meets international standards. Madam Speaker, as I had earlier alluded to, very few players have made to the ranks of Edward Rombo since 1990. This should be an indictment on our collective consciousness as a country, given the immense potential this country has shown. Kenya leads in rugby at the regional level, with visiting teams from Uganda, Cameroon, up to base their games with ours. We must ask the right question of ourselves and at the talent, at the same time, not to fear the tough questions. I ask, why is it not a priority to develop a rugby talent in Kenya? Why not restore Kenya as a regional rugby hub that is self-sustaining? Why is sport not managed in our universities in similar fashion as it is in the world over? There is a missing link between school rugby and university rugby that needs to be dealt with. Establishing high-performance centers and construction of national rugby stadium will make positive strides to promoting rugby as a sport in Kenya and nurturing our youth. When investment in sport is well informed, it has the ability to create employment and spur growth. As Kenyans, we must pause and reflect so often on this issue. I beg us to do the same. Pause and reflect how other nations are able to overcome conflict, produce world-class sports icon across various disciplines with a low population that are fraction of ours. Pause and reflect on rugby as a vehicle that is ready to go and only needs a little fuel to be injected. The players have gone out there and shown potential. Let us support rugby in Kenya, and you will see more desired results sustainably. Madam Speaker, with those few remarks, I implore the honorable members present to support this motion that seeks to establish high-performance centers in every region and a national rugby stadium in Kenya. Thank you.
Who is your seconder, Honorable Keter? Honorable Kiarie, you seem to be, or who is it? Yeah, Honorable Keter, you should know that you must have a seconder for such a motion. So, no, you can't have too many. You just pick one. Who will be prepared to second what you just presented?
It's okay. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Earlier on, you were confused of my name. My name is Osoro.
I have it now, Honorable Member.
Thank you very much.
Honorable Osoro, yeah.
I rise to second this motion by Honorable Keter on the establishment of the National Rugby Union Stadium in the country and high-performance centers of excellence in every region. Madam Speaker, we need to live by the fact that this is a country that adores sports. If you notice, during the World Cup, every Kenyan, most Kenyans were actually converging themselves or finding themselves in common centers to watch football. That this country, people adore sports. As we are speaking right now, Madam Speaker, quite recently, we noticed that our rugby team, our national rugby team, went to represent this country in the world. Madam Speaker, sports is not just a form of exercise. It's equally, it can actually be used as a money-generating format for our youth. It's actually, it can be nurtured to be a career for our jobless young people. We have high reach level of talent in this country, and talent in diverse grounds, including sports. Our young people who are well talented, so well equipped, you know, within their bodies, to engage themselves in sporting activities that can equally generate themselves with income, and equally our people who want to lose weight, you know, to avoid these lifestyle diseases, are lacking places to train themselves, are lacking places to exercise themselves in. And Madam Speaker, it's important for us to nurture the sporting activities in this country. And this should not just start in establishing the national centers, as Honorable Keter has alluded. Madam Speaker, it's important to start looking at that, the sporting activities, right from the ground, right from our, you know, right from our educational system, like our learning institutions, primary schools, the secondary schools, the universities, all through. If we are able to establish serious learning, serious sporting grounds, we'll nurture talent, we'll be able to fight lifestyle diseases, and above everything, we'll be able to put this country in the global region in terms of sports. Madam Speaker, I rise to support this motion. I support and I second Honorable Keter, and it's important to urge the government to consider establishing the centers, and at least one, even if it's one in Nairobi County, even if it's one in every region, even if we try and say, okay, the coastal region, we are going to have one, Nairobi region, we have one, the Nyanza region, we have one, the western part, we have one. We'll be able to raise or improve our sporting activities in the country. So I second the motion.
Very well. Before we move on to proposing the question on this one, let's take time to welcome our pupils who are here with us, some in the speakers gallery and some in the public gallery. We have St. Paul Mbaraga Primary School from Mbere North in Embu County. Welcome. We have Karuriri Primary School from Manyata, again in Embu County. We have Matunda Primary School from Gatanga in Muranga. We have Kiurani Primary School in Mara in Tharaka Nithi County. Welcome. Honorable members, I go on to propose a question, which is that aware of the economic, health, social, and cultural benefits of sports, further aware that Section 4 of the Sports Act 2013 provides the functions of Sports Kenya, which includes, among others, the establishment, management, development, and maintenance of the sports facilities, recognizing that rugby in the country has experienced tremendous growth and is one of the fastest growing sporting activities in the country, appreciating that the Kenya Rugby Union management has been instrumental in spearheading the sport regionally and internationally, thus setting the country as a rugby powerhouse globally. Deeply concerned that despite the various achievements and international glory that the sport has brought to the country, there is no single national rugby stadium. This House urges the national government to establish a national rugby union stadium in the country and high-performance centers of excellence in every region with a view to providing quality sporting infrastructure, promoting the sport, and providing facilities where talent scouted can be nurtured. Honorable members, I just wish to point out that the mover of the motion is 15 minutes, and every other member contributing will have 5 minutes, a maximum of 5 minutes to contribute to the motion, of course with the exception of the leaders of majority and minority. Let's start with Honorable Waluke. Koi Waluke is not in. Honorable Mwamkale Kamoti.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. First and foremost, I would want to thank Honorable Keter for this timely motion, and I rise to support this motion, Madam Speaker. Indeed, Kenya is a country where its citizens adore sports. We've seen it, be it football, rugby, or athletics. And our concern is that maybe attention has been put to athletics and football, forgetting the other disciplines of sports in this country. Madam Speaker, it's high time our country embraces all the disciplines, exploiting their talents. Madam Speaker, rugby, and I'll commend the Rugby Union for taking rugby to where it is now, because it's an old sport, but it's recent years when we've started seeing rugby, our Kenyan rugby, being played in the international arena. And I thank the management of Rugby Union for that. I commend the Safari Sevens. They've really put our country into the sports map of the world. They've brought glory to our country, and it's really high time that there be avenues. I'm saying this because rugby is played in schools. in all our schools in the country, children play rugby, but immediately thereafter, very few find that the road is closed and they either go to football or athletics. So I really support that we should have these high performance centers in our country so that our sportsmen, be they people who have chosen rugby, can know that there's a place to go, can see some centers where they can go to nurture their talents. Really, it's high time that we encourage sports. We know that it is a very lucrative, discipline. People are earning billions in this world because of sports. But what we do in Kenya is we wait for individuals to find their way, people to train in the Rift Valley, find their way into Europe. But it's high time the government embraces this and makes sure that we have an avenue for our children to pursue their talents. With that, Mr. Speaker, I support this motion, and I believe, as it has been said, that this will not only end as a motion, but it will be followed up with a relevant law to make sure that it's enforced. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well, the Honorable Kamuti. We shall have the Honorable Ogutu Abel, the member for Bomachoge Borabu. Very well, he does not wish to be in the House. We shall have the Honorable Jeldesa Dida, member for Isiolo. Very well. We shall have the Honorable Oyo Onyango, member for Muhoroni.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for this kind of consideration. Mr. Speaker, I want to take the cue in supporting my good friend Gideon Keter for floating this good this good petition motion, although I think that because like many sports, rugby is well liked by young boys and girls who are the majority of our population, but the way it is managed, it has been left a lot to be desired, such that only few who come from privileged families are able to pursue it beyond the normal practices or exercise that they use doing this thing. I believe that like many other sporting activities, much emphasis should be put in the development and management of rugby, more so through the sporting activities like the ministry concerned or the Rugby Association of Kenya, to make the exercise or the game more desirable and more attractive to the young boys. We have, at a time when the country needs a lot of income from various activities, the sports are not being managed well. Although I believe that with the collapse of agriculture, which is intentional, I think some people in the government wanted agriculture to collapse so that they make money out of illicit imports, which like is the case today. Sports should put more emphasis. Those who are concerned with the management of sports in various departments should put more emphasis and ensure that that they are well managed, that our players or participants are well treated, such that when they go out, they carry the dignity outside and they come back with the dignity that they deserve, and that the monies that accrue from their sporting activities, they should be helped to invest them wisely, so that it is not a common thing. Every time we have people who have performed very well, they have excelled, they have cut images in the world, then they come back here to suffer, and just resort to drinking helplessly. So I want to assure my good friend, Honorable Keter, that we will support this motion to the hilt, and that is in the best interest of the youth and the population of this country. Thank you very much. I support.
Honorable members, I would like to recognize the presence of students from Gatanga Primary, Gatanga constituency from Moranga County, who are in the Speaker's Gallery. They are welcome to witness the proceedings of
the National Assembly this morning. You're most welcome. This opportunity now goes to the Honorable Tum Chebet, member for Nandi.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I support this motion in the establishment of a national rugby union in the nation of Kenya. Sporting activities has been known to promote anti-aging. There are many benefits, social, cultural, economic. When we talk about economic, we talk about the issue of job creation. There are quite a number of our youth who are lying idle, they have no jobs. So if they are engaged, the economic index of this country will grow. There is the issue of social. We know there is the issue of crime. The youth in our country are engaged in a lot of crime. They are engaged in drug abuse, substance abuse. And if we engage them in sporting activities, there will be a reduction. There will be the issue of security in our land. There is the issue of cultural benefits. We know very well that peace initiatives can be ventured into if we engage in sporting activities. We know very well the athletes in our nation have improved the economy of Kenya. And if we venture into rugby, we are going to create a lot of jobs for our youth. There is anti-aging. In the papers, we saw that 800,000 will be used on the area of obesity in the land to do operations. So if we engage sporting activities, if the youth and the men of this country are engaged, we are not going to use 800,000 in operations. We are going to use that money to take our children to school. And the other issue is poverty reduction. If the youth and the men in our land are engaged in sporting activities, we are going to create jobs. Unemployment will not be an issue, and we'll engage our youth. Even in our schools, there is mental health, there is fitness, and what have you in sporting. I support this motion. We need to establish national rugby stadiums in Kenya. As a member of sports, I'm in for it because we need facilities in our nation. We need men and women who are engaged in sporting activities so that we cannot engage in other antisocial behaviors, and we bring unity. There is the issue of coming together as a nation. The tribes will not be fighting one another. When we engage and we meet, we'll sow seeds of love in our nation. Thank you.
Everyone, I have seen the chair of sports and heritage. He has just walked in. You settle down, you take notes. You will have an opportunity to speak after all the members have contributed to this, because this is within your docket. The Honorable Dr. Munyaka. The opportunity now goes to the Honorable Duoro Mbaka, member for Siaya. The member for Siaya.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. Sports is a very important activity for any human being, and for promotion of rugby, it's a good thing. We're moving towards the right direction. Rugby has been here with us for many years. I remember growing up in primary, secondary school, and up to university. Rugby has always been my fun. I'm a fan of rugby, and some of us met our spouses through rugby because they were players of rugby. And rugby all over the world is a very popular sport, and many people admire it because of the manner in which it's played, the aggression, the unity again. It's a mixture of everything in the sport. Not only is it good for our health in terms of fitness and good health, but I think it's also part and parcel of what can be an economic entity for various groups. It is an income-generating activity, just like any other sport, like soccer. Soccer is a very powerful game, And you can see how the whole world watches it and the whole world participates in it. The same can be for rugby. For this country, we need to begin by improving various sports, with rugby being one of them. Swimming has always been forgotten. I'm a fan of swimming, and we need to consider so many types of sports that our people can engage in. And when you look at the lives of young people today, it is completely in a mess. A lot of them are idle. A lot of them don't have any jobs. And they end up just sitting in the streets begging and getting engaged in violence and some form of drug addiction. And if we improve sports in this country, I think many of our young people will participate in sports and will spend more quality time in sport activity. I do support this bill because of the fact that it can improve the lives of our young people who are still active and can participate in rugby. The establishment of stadium is also necessary. Having a national stadium will unite Kenyans, and sports is known to unite people. Even in South Africa, where people used to fight each other in terms of racial apartheid system, it has been found that sport unites a nation. And if rugby can be established and stadium also built in this country, I think that there will be a big kind of unity that we lack in this country. Many parts of the country will unite during sports entertainments or sports competitions, and you will find that we are going to build a Kenyan society that is united, that is more peaceful, that love one another. And for various reasons, I think there are good things that will go with the establishment of improving rugby in our country. However, with what we have seen in sports in this country, so many things disappoint us. When there's no money for sports, there's never any money for soccer, much as it is very popular. There's no money for tennis, there's no money for any type of sport. So even if we promote rugby, that challenge is likely to continue. And this is the only opportunity to highlight the fact that we may wish to establish many types of sports in this country, but we need at the same time to ensure that funds are allocated that can sustain the establishment and practices of these sports. Lastly, I can see that sometimes back we talked about every constituency having a stadium. That has not been established up to now. I'm not too sure whether the mover of this motion is considering the fact that stadiums, if established the way it was discussed in the previous, then even rugby will be included in those stadiums. Does it mean that we need more stadiums for rugby specifically, or the kind of stadiums that we have generally will also engage and will include rugby as well? That is what I need clarification on. Otherwise, we may end.
The honorable member for Sia, you have every member should know that you have just 5 minutes. But I'll allow you just 1 minute to finish your submissions, I think. Oh, you are done?
Yes, I just wanted to conclude by saying that it is a bill that I support, only that certain weaknesses that we have in sports should be addressed first before we start establishing another stadium, even though we have already thought of putting stadiums in every constituency. Thank you.
Very well. Your contributions are noted, and it is true that sport pays. Personally, I was lucky that part of my fees in high school was paid because of swimming. I was a good swimmer those days. So this is a good thing. We shall have the Honorable Mwirigi, member for Igembe South.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, for giving me this opportunity to contribute to this important motion. First and foremost, I'd like to congratulate Honorable Gideon Ketel for bringing this motion, which is very important to our lives, especially the young people who normally engage in playing rugby. Mr. Speaker, sir, back when I was in high school, this was my favorite game, and it helped me a lot. So I would like to encourage the establishment of a National Rugby Union Stadium in the country, and even to go further in our counties, so that we can be able to tap many talents of the young people. Being aware of this game brings the young people together, it unites them, it brings unity amongst our fellow countrymen. This is because this is the avenue where many people tend to interact. And this being a favorite game on the health matters, Mr. Speaker, sir, it helps a lot in developing our even body structures. So, Mr. Speaker, sir, I would like to urge my fellow members to support this motion so that we can have these stadiums, especially in our counties, whereby we can encourage our young people. Because having those clubs whereby our young people are practicing this or playing rugby, they will be much aware what is being gotten back from games. Because game in our country and even outside this country, globally, this is a well-paying ground whereby you will tend to see a player earning a lot of money in gaming. So, Mr. Speaker, sir, I would like to urge the government to consider rugby as one of the important matches which should be encouraged, which should be funded, and which should be encouraged even to our schools so that we can have those teams. At the same time, as our Kenyan team is going to play outside there, we can have even more and more players who are experts on those grounds to go and practice and represent our country outside and even internally. So, Mr. Speaker, sir, I beg to support this motion. Thank you.
Very well. The Honorable Dr. Otiende Amolo, member for Ariat.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I support this motion with a slight rider. First of all, Mr. Speaker, unlike the motion before it, it identifies the government in issue. It urges the national government, and that is encouraging. I think it's a lesson for the drafters of this motion. Second, Mr. Speaker, the establishment of a National Rugby Union Stadium is a good thing, but I'll urge the mover to drop the word union. Once you introduce the word union, then you are no longer establishing a national establishment. You are establishing it for the union. Unions are not necessarily public, and therefore it confuses the entire motion. But that having said, Mr. Speaker, I am sure that when in the fullness of time, it comes to be debated where the location of that national stadium will be, I think we all know where most of the rugby players come from, and I'm quite sure that it will be somewhere in the vicinity of the lakeside. But, Mr. Speaker, however, unfortunately, the motion continues with yet the tradition of referring to every region. Mr. Speaker, this is something that I hope that from the Speaker's perspective we'll be able to address, because it's confusing to the intent of Parliament, to the essence of the motion when we keep talking of every region, because we all know that we do not have the former provinces as such. And the closest you mean when you talk of every region is the counties. or unless you mean the constituencies. So talking of every region then brings all sorts of complications. And I would urge that in drafting these motions, including this one, we focus on establishment of a national rugby stadium and leave the idea of every region alone, because in any event, sports also falls within the ambit of county government, and county governments must also assume some responsibility, financial and otherwise, in establishing some of these facilities. So, Mr. Speaker, I support, except, of course, Mr. Speaker, as you're aware, that I have a big issue with the framing of motions as urging and not resolving, and they end up being merely, some wish list does not go anywhere. And sometimes I wonder whether it's an effective use of our time. But however, Mr. Speaker, with those remarks, I support.
Very well, the Honorable Tiende. We shall have the Honorable Lesuda Aisula, member for.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to support this motion with some riders on it, Mr. Speaker. It is very important that we have a national stadium that will be specifically dedicated to rugby. And also I see that it is also one that says about high performance centers of excellence, Mr. Speaker. And I also think that it is important that we even start with one. We are always very ambitious. We know that we had the 5 stadiums that we are still waiting for. It is even important that this House is appraised on how far we have even gone with the 5, and whether we can see whether one of them, can actually be made to be one for rugby. Because, Mr. Speaker, it is one thing for us to comment on issues here, we pass motions, but the actual doing, and we also know that it also requires finances, Mr. Speaker. It is important that we know how far we have gone with the 5. I am aware that in some counties the progress is going on a bit quite slow, but it is important that before we even talk about another one, a new one, we know about the other stadiums that are going on. Mr. Speaker, we cannot overemphasize the importance of sports in our country for our young people. We have also seen how it usually unifies us. When rugby is playing and everybody's waking up at funny hours to watch, and just the unity, or our athletes, when they're out there and they're running, when they're out there, they're Kenyans. And we're also happy, and when our flag goes up, it is only when they come back home is when we want to know which tribe this person is from. But it has a unifying factor for us as a country, and it is something that we must support. Also on issues rugby, it is important that we know that the players normally, they're doing their own professions, and they're just playing rugby as I think even sometimes as a hobby. It is important that we think about it as a profession itself, so that we can show that sports can actually pay. It can pay, it pays off. We know many students who've gotten scholarships because of sports, but we lose a lot of talent after our students finish high school or universities, because that is where we tend to nurture our talents, especially in sports, but thereafter we do not continue to make it a profession. We leave our players to donations, from us politicians, from other entities and sponsors. But as a government, we are not really putting a lot in terms of making sure that sports can pay, that sports is a profession. It is something that we must think of as a country, and I think this can be a start in the right direction as we continue to promote sports across our country, Mr. Speaker. So I do support this motion. It will be interesting to see how we actually follow up on it, to see that it is implemented. But I just wanted to comment that of the stadiums that are being constructed, we can make one of them to be in the country, to be one of our stadiums on rugby. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. I think your contributions are being noted by the committee, the relevant committee. The chair is here, is taking note of this. We shall have the Honorable Wangaya Aseka, member for Quisero.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I join my colleagues in supporting this motion that there's a need to establish a rugby stadium in our country. But on the onset, Mr. Speaker, let me apologize with two rugby players who passed on, who happens to hail from Quisero constituency, the late Mike Okombe, and 2 weeks ago, Mr. Speaker, we lost one young man and I, who was a very bright and upcoming rugby player. As my colleagues have said, Mr. Speaker, it is important to promote sport because sports unifies a nation. Sports also promotes national cohesion. And as a house, it is on us upon us to ensure that every sporting activity is supported by this house. So, Speaker, as we know, rugby is a game that excites many. There's something that, as a house, we know those to encourage the rugby union, that they should be careful with the use of substance, which we know it's used to energize players when they're doing this game. It's good that as we move on as a country and support this game, let us ensure that they bar the use of some substances that at the end of the day, Mr. Speaker, we have seen them affecting the lives of our young players. Lastly, Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the Rugby Association. I want to thank the rugby team. It has put this country into a national map, which has brought pride and favor to this nation. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I support the motion.
The Honorable Asek, did I hear you say that there's a substance that is used to energize these rugby players? What is that substance?
Mr. Speaker, I withdraw. Thank you.
Very well. Very well. We shall have the Honorable Jaldesa Dida, followed by the Honorable Sanko.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I would like to rise to oppose this motion. And Mr. Speaker, the reason why I am opposing the motion, number one, is because of the way it is worded, that we establish a rugby union and a center of excellence in every region. Mr. Speaker, as far as I am concerned, this is a duplication of a motion that was brought to this House not long ago and that the members debated and passed, which states of the need to establish a sporting academy in every constituency. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, I feel this is a duplication of another effort. Mr. Speaker, my opposing the motion does not mean that I don't feel the need and the importance of having rugby. Rugby is one of the games which is very promising and which has put this country in the map of the world. Therefore, to that level, I recognize the importance of rugby. Mr. Speaker, I wish the mover of the motion was here. My proposal will have been for the mover to bring or to rather amend the motion to state for the need to have a multi-purpose center that will host conference centers, conference facilities, concerts, trade exports, indoor and outdoor sporting events, and small and medium enterprise stalls, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I would like to also further suggest that as it is, rugby is not a game that is felt all over this country. Mr. Speaker, like for example, the county of Isiolo, where I come from, rugby, we just watch it on television and we read it in newspaper. Therefore, if the mover wants to make it a regional, I think the most important thing is to market the sports in every part of this country. And even if you look around, most of the people from the areas that I come from are not here because they don't understand this sport. So we need to understand the sport. We need to, part of the sport because it is a good sport. Mr. Speaker, sir, again, we do not have shortages of sporting facilities in this country. My humble request is if we could focus in ensuring that we uplift the standard of the sporting facilities that we have to sort of an international level where it can have a multi-purpose function. Like we have a very nice, very convenient sporting center here, the National Stadium. We have the Kasarani and many other places, Mr. Speaker. Therefore, my humble request is that we should not be seen as duplicating, initiatives. Let us, consider that these proposals has financial implication to the people of this country. Let us not burden the Kenyans because as it is, they are already burdened. With that, Mr. Speaker, I beg to oppose.
Very well. The Honorable Sanko.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. And from the onset, unlike the Honorable Member of just spoken, I really do support this motion. Honorable Speaker, I want to congratulate our Honorable Gideon Keter, being a representative of the youth and doing his work perfectly well, because we know sporting activities are for the youth. He earned his position here if he keep on bringing motion such as this that will assist our youth in this country. Honorable Speaker, it have also come at the right time when, as a country, we are mourning. We are mourning because having a CES by the name Rashid Achesa, who was a sportsman and who is also under bracket of youth, and now our athletes are stranded somewhere in the airport in Nigeria. It is shameful to this country. It is shameful to the Ministry of Sport. It is shameful to the CS himself, who is under the bracket of a youth and who was also a sportsman himself. I hear that he was a boxer. Honorable Speaker, we should take seriously.
The Honorable Sankok, there's a point of order from the Honorable Munyaka Kioko. The Honorable Munyaka, Doctor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. I really wanted to inform Honorable Sagok that the current situation happening in Nigeria is not Kenyan making, because actually around 5 nations are stranded at the airport, have not been able to go to the competition venue because of a lack of proper planning and connection flights. So it's not only Kenya, Ethiopia is also stranded, Senegal is also stranded, Djibouti is stranded, and the mistake is by Nigerian authorities and the Continental Federation, which is organizing the games.
Very well. The Honorable Sankok, are you now well informed?
Of course, I understand, failures have very many excuses, and excuses are justification of failures. If we can actually have a delegation of the government, including the CS, having direct flights to wherever they are going to, but when it comes to our sportsmen and women who win this country gold medals, we have to find the cheapest mean of transport, connecting flights, and so on. Honorable Speaker, that excuse is not a justification why our men and women are stranded somewhere in Nigeria. And it is not for us to solve that problem. It is the government led by the Ministry of Sport. Honorable Speaker, because before I was rudely interrupted, I was saying that I support this motion of Honorable Gideon Keter, who is a youth himself, and is doing a perfect job. And I expected the CS Rashid Achesa to do just what Honorable Keter is doing as a youth also himself. So, Honorable Speaker, we really need to develop the talent of our young men and women, because apart from bringing that social fabric and uniting our country, it will also save us from this youth with their extra energy engaging in other activities that are not beneficial to them, activities like drugs, alcoholism, immorality, and crimes. When we have such a study, you will find that the extra energy of this youth is tapped there. Honorable Speaker, for a long time, we as a country, and when I talk of we as a country, the media included, have sidelined rugby as a sport. We have always concentrated on football, we have concentrated on athletics, but we have forgotten rugby. For instance, I was just informed that there was an athlete who became the world top scorer. I don't even know his name, because the media probably gave a blackout to such
The Honorable Sankok, everybody has 5 minutes, but I'll give you 1 minute so that we just wind down. 1 minute. Give him the mic, please.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. And before I conclude, because I have to talk about activities and sports of persons with disability, being their representative here in the National Assembly. Honorable Speaker, as we develop these studies and as we develop sports in this country, let us also remember that persons with disability may be disabled, but they are also human beings who also need these activities, and we should develop together this activity. I suggest that even the sporting activities of persons with disability should start being developed in primary and secondary school, because we find competition of sports in primary and secondary school is only for the able-bodied. Honorable Speaker, it is also good for this House to note that in 2016 we went for Paralympic and Olympics. And Olympics, actually, that is the able-bodied, won 13 medals out of 89 athletes. That translates to 14%. Persons with disabilities, Paralympic, were only 9 athletes, and they won 6 medals. That translates to 70%. So who is disabled? Of course, it is the people you presume not to be disabled. So, Honorable Speaker, let us also develop activities of persons with disability. And thank you very much for giving me an extra minute. I beg to support.
Very well. We shall have the member for Kilifi County, the Honorable Mwanyange Mbeyo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to support this motion. Mr. Speaker, establishing National Rugby Stadium, not a union, I want to concur with Honorable who said it should not be a union, and it should be established in all 47 counties and not regions, Mr. Speaker. I rise to support as a member of Kilifi County, Mr. Speaker. In Kilifi, we don't have even a football stadium. Mr. Speaker, we've had a budget in the Kilifi County Assembly when I was still an MCA of having a stadium for football, and it's not seen the light of the day to date. So having this as a national program to have a rugby stadium in all counties and not all regions, it's a good idea for our youth. Many youth are stranded. They don't have sporting clubs, they don't have stadiums, they can't grow their talents, and having this stadium in every county, Mr. Speaker, would be a very good idea for our youth, ladies and male, so that they grow and nurture their talents, both the youth in school and out of school. Mr. Speaker, I support this motion. Thank you.
The Honorable Koi Waluke.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me a chance also to contribute on this. Mr. Speaker, sports is a very important tool in this country, Mr. Speaker, and we are always proud of this rugby. Rugby has made us proud as a country, Mr. Speaker, all over the world, selling the name of Kenya. And the athletes, they have been our ambassadors everywhere. And indeed, Honorable Speaker, I rise to support this motion that the government should facilitate building sports stadiums, not everywhere as it is in the motion, because it needs a lot of money, I know, and our country is upcoming, still developing, but we need stadiums to build talents of our young people, like rugby, like football. 3 events, Mr. Speaker, the rugby, the athletics, and also volleyball. Kenya has been known very much in those 3, the volleyball and also the rugby that we are talking about, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, I support.
Very well. We shall have the Honorable Member for Central Imenti, Nguchini, the Honorable Nguchini.
Honorable Gideon Kittel. Thank you. Mr. Speaker, sir, I stand to support the motion as brought up by the representative of the youth, Honorable Gideon Kittel, as relates to the game of rugby, for the establishment of the stadiums to promote the game of rugby. As it is, the game of rugby has come to be very important in Kenya presently because it has really promoted the country worldwide. In not many activities where, other than athletics, where we have been able to compete with international countries, especially superpowers, but in the game of rugby we have been seeing that really we are able to suppress them. And we have shined in international arena when it comes to rugby. Rugby in rural areas is somehow a strange game, a new game. And it is mainly earned over the radio and the TV screens, only seen the TV screens. But if we establish facilities in various regions, this game is going to be promoted even in the rural areas. There are many youths who like to imitate what they see in the TV screens, but due to lack of facilities, especially stadiums, coaches, and even the rugby boss themselves, they cannot even know what kind of a game it is. It's not surprising some of us saw it when they reached university level, because it's only in high-learning institutions where rugby is found. And by that time, to give somebody who is already over 20 years skills to play this game, it takes time. It's not like when you start somebody when you start a kid from from primary school or secondary school. So there are a lot of talents which are being hidden and or which cannot be exploited due to lack of these facilities on the ground. So what Honorable Kitel did at this time was timely, is the best, and I believe that when this motion is passed, let it not just rot in the locker or where they are kept together and dust like any other motions which we are passed in this parliament. Let it be pursued to see that it can be implemented. Because this is a sport which also can earn this country a lot of foreign currency, especially when we have rugby tournaments. We have even visitors coming from outside who come to visit and see in neighboring countries. This motion is good, and Mr. Speaker, sir, I support it to the hilt. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honorable Member for Vihiga. The Honorable Kibayo, yes.
Thank you, Speaker, sir, for the opportunity to contribute to this motion. Mr. Speaker, let me start by saying this. For a very long time, rugby has always been seen as an elite sport. In fact, during my time in school, the only schools that used to undertake this game was Nairobi School, Lenana School, St. Mary's, and Rift Valley Academy in Kijabe. Now, I remember being an alumni of Nairobi School. I used to play the game in school, but when I go home, nobody knows what this game was all about. We must thank some of the gentlemen who came to take up this sport leadership in this country. I have in mind people like Mwangi Muthe. Mwangi Muthe, when he took over the leadership of KRFU, which is Kenya Rugby Football Union, he embarked on a program to spread the game in the country. Unfortunately, in fact, apart from Mwangi Muthe, there came another gentleman who is still the chairman right now. It's called Richard Omwela. They actually went out to try and spread this sport in the country. Unfortunately, they tended to concentrate on the western part of the country. So in a very short time, we had schools like Kakamega High, Maseno School, really coming out, Vihiga School, really coming out to excel in this game. We urge the union to continue the program. If you look at the current composition of the Kenya rugby football team, you will find that almost 80% of the people who form that team come from the western side of the country. This is not by accident. This is because when they were spreading the game, they tended to concentrate in the schools in Western Kenya. We want to urge the union to take up this opportunity. We want to hear people from Nyeri really playing this game, people from Tana River Coast and so forth. Now, I've heard my colleagues talking of we are doing very well in rugby. No. There are two forms of rugby. There is the sevens, where you have only 7 players playing, but the main sport is the 15-a-side. That was the original sport of rugby. We are not doing very well, Mr. Speaker, or Madam Speaker now. We are not doing very well in the 15s-a-side. I want to urge the union to spare a lot of thought for the 15-a-side, because we seem to have concentrated on the 7s-a-side and forgotten the 15-a-side. After all, the original form of rugby was the 15-a-side. Now, as I support this motion by our colleague, Mr. Honorable Keter, I wish the motion went slightly further. Apart from just talking about the physical facilities, we should also be talking about the motivational aspects of this game. Even if you take our Kenya Sevens aside, the other day, I can't remember whether it was Singapore or somewhere, where our players actually refused to wear the logo of the sponsor. Why did they do that? It's because they were not paid their allowances. And that was a form of a protest. We should urge all the people right from the ministry all the way to the Rugby Football Union to ensure that when we take our people out, our boys out, all their allowances are taken care of, and then we don't have anything which could end up being shameful. So, Madam Speaker, I support this motion, but if I had a chance to amend it, I would have brought in the motivational aspects rather than the physical stadiums. But let's start with the physical facilities, and then we can move on to the other aspects. Thank you, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity. Thank you.
Very well, very well. I am aware also in Parliament we have a sports committee, and we have done very well. I want to give to one of the members of the sports. I don't know whether we have a rugby. Honorable Machakos Town, Munyaka? And you must also, I don't know whether it is true that you're a member of the committee.
I'm actually the chair, Sports, Culture and Tourism Committee in Kenya National Assembly. From the onset, I want to congratulate Honorable Gideon Keter for coming up with this motion, and also thank the members who have come up to support this motion. As the chair of the sports committee, I also want to say that the biggest agenda for the committee is to push the government to be able to come up with facilities to support all the sports activities in Kenya. And Madam Speaker, actually, currently our committee is moving around the country, starting from last week, where we visited the western region of Kenya. And we were very pleased to see the type of structures, sporting structures in that region. One of the biggest surprise for the committee is the visit to Luanda constituency, where the immediate chair or the speaker who was just on the seat represents Luanda constituency, and where we found he's already establishing a stadium and done a very good work. And actually, the committee has observed that if all members of parliament could allocate some money through CDF, we could be able to assist the Kenyan youth to be able to have facilities to be able to participate. So congratulations, Honorable Omulela, for that initiative. I want to say that a lot of sentiments have come up from members. I know questions have been asked about the status of the 5-chance stadia. I want to say that Kasarani is actually now complete. Nyayo Stadium has faced a lot of challenge on release of budget funding. So we actually, as a committee, request the ministry, the treasury actually, to be able to fund these stadia so that they can be completed, so that Kenya can have good facilities. The issue of the National Rugby Stadia, I think that is a very wise idea, because currently we lack such a stadia in Kenya. And yet, rugby is one of the best sports which has marketed Kenya. It's actually next to athletics. So we need it, we need even to be able to duplicate stadia across the counties, as other many members have actually said, so that Kenyans can even understand this sporting activity and even participate in it, so that we can be able to sustain that game in Kenya. Otherwise, I want to say that this committee will be able to do what is necessary through lobbying for a lot of funding for sports activities. In fact, from tomorrow we are visiting the Mount Kenya region and the Upper Eastern region of Kenya, including Marsabit, because there is a stadium there, so that we can see the status of development of those stadium and request Treasury to be able to fund and complete those ongoing stadia. Otherwise, thank you very much, Honorable Keter. The committee stands with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Honorable Member for Machakos Town. Honorable members, we have a proposed amendment to this motion. Yeah, I've looked at it. It's a small amendment. I mean, not a small amendment. It's an amendment, which is just a moment. Yeah, rightfully, there's an amendment to the motion on the establishment of a national rugby union stadium in the country, and this amendment is by the Honorable Ngeno, and procedurally we allow him to move his amendment.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for this opportunity. I wish to move an amendment to the motion that the motion be amended by deleting the word union appearing immediately before the phrase stadium in the country. Madam Speaker, as you might have read the motion itself, the motion is actually intending to create the stadiums which actually will be used by the rugby players. And of course, as we all know that most of the rugby teams are normally registered under the unions. But the stadiums which are to be created, Madam Speaker, are not meant to just be for the unions themselves. And actually, when you read the motion, it will look like we are creating these particular stadiums for the unions themselves, or to be owned by the unions. But instead, Madam Speaker, we are creating, or we are intending, to have these stadiums so that they can be used by all the rugby players, regardless of their status, whether they are registered as unions or not. Madam Speaker, in that same mode, Madam Speaker, I would wish to just say that the intention of this motion, Madam Speaker, and is very important. It's very important in the sense that this is one of the most serious game that we have in this country. This is a game that most of our players play in the international arena. This is one of the sport which has put actually this country in the limelight. This is one of the sport which has actually put Kenya in the map of the world. Madam Speaker, not only on national level, but on international arena. Remember, Madam Speaker, it is only Kenya and a few other African countries like Zimbabwe and South Africa who normally participate in the international matches. And Kenya has always proved to be one of the toughest countries in the world, Madam Speaker. It is also in the same note, Madam Speaker, that I would wish to propose that this country, especially...
Order, the Honorable Kipiegon Ngeno, member for Emura Dikiri.
Yes, Madam Speaker.
You have an amendment, but you are supposed to move the amendment.
Yes.
You are just debating your amendment, you have not moved it. Please, can you move the amendment as it is?
I stand guided, Madam Speaker.
You stand guided, thank you.
I therefore would wish to move the amendment.
That what?
That the motion be amended by deleting the word union appearing immediately before the phrase stadium in the country. I wish to move.
Yes, you've moved now. You can now finish your debate on that.
Yes, Madam Speaker, thank you for guiding me. I would also wish to state that apart from creating this particular stadium, Madam Speaker, Kenya must also be, and especially the committee that deals with sport and the ministry which is actually dealing with sport. The reason why we actually created the Ministry of Sport is because there are particular sports in this country which actually put Kenya in the map. And sometimes, Madam Speaker, we would have wished to participate in, or we would have wished to have our country participate in the World Cup, would have wished our country to participate in so many other activities in the world. But as you look, maybe our country is not good in football. And therefore, Madam Speaker, when you look at the sports which our country are good in, we have the rugby, which is actually number one. We have the athletics, which has always been making Kenya shine in the whole world. And we also have the cricket. Madam Speaker, these are the sports which our country, when actually doing budgets, especially this House, the Committee on Sports, when they are making their proposals for budgets during the budget making, these are the sports which we should actually put a lot of money, so that we don't just put so much money on football. While we all know that football is not our thing. Football belongs to either West Africa and South America and Europe. We need to invest on the sports that we know. Athletics is a Kenyan thing. Athletics, Madam Speaker, like when my brother was just debating on the situation that is facing our athletes in Nigeria, it's very absurd.
Again, for guidance, I know you have a lot of information, but this does not limit you. Your amendment does not limit you from your debating on the main, either amended or not amended motion. Yes. I would advise if you just be relevant to your amendment, just so that the members can have a gist of what you're trying to amend, and that is, of course, understand the omission of the union. Yeah, so that now we can debate on your amendment and then maybe go back to the amended form or an unamended form.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I think I don't want to dwell so much on many other things, but actually the point has been driven home. Madam Speaker, I would just wish to state that I wish members to support this particular amendment in the sense that we will allow a variety of activities to be happening in those particular stadiums that we are going to create. And if we are going to create the stadiums in every county, Madam Speaker, I think we'll also have an opportunity to train our youths who would want to venture much to the rugby, so that it cannot just be a game or a sport for one particular region, and for, like what my brother said, also elitists, in that some particular areas will only participate in it. So if we were to create these stadiums, not as unions, we would actually have every county having at least a particular stadium for these sporting activities, so that we can have many youths enrolling as players. Madam Speaker, I wish to end there by saying I wish to make that proposal for amendment.
Do you have a second to your amendment?
Yes, I wish to ask Mheshimiwa Tobiko to second.
Honorable Speaker, I second.
For purposes of the speaker, yes. Can I see the second? I was just consulting, yes. Honorable Tobiko? She's done it.
Yes.
The speaker didn't say. Can you, for records, I was consulting.
All right. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I second.
You second. Thank you. The motion is seconded. And members, having listened to the amendment, proposed amendment, the Honorable Member, and procedurally seconded by Honorable Tobiko, I therefore propose the question, which is that the word proposed for this matter, which is union, to be left out, be left out. The member for Vihiga?
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam, I stand here to second that amendment, and thank you, Honorable Ngeno, for that amendment. The reason I think we want that word removed is because in every sport, you can have different organizations running the sport. For example, now I'm speaking on the amendment.
Yes, he's rightly speaking on the amendment.
The amendment,
we have a motion in the House, that is the amendment. If you want to speak on the amendment, please can come to intervention, yes?
Am I protected?
Carry on, Honourable Member.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I was just saying, like, for example, in England, we have different unions running the game of rugby. We have the English Rugby Union, which takes care of the professional players. And then we have another organization, which I think is called the Federation or something, which runs the amateur players. So I think this amendment is timely because it gives the impression that these stadiums will be meant for the union. Who knows? In the next 2 years, we might have, or in the next 1 month, we might have a split in the management of rugby in this country, in which case you might have one organization called the Rugby Union and another one maybe called the Rugby Federation, the way we have seen it in football. So I think this amendment is timely. We are not urging the development of these stadiums for a union, but for the whole country. Madam Speaker, I support this amendment.
You support the amendment. Honourable Member for Nakuru Town East, Honourable Gikaria, to speak to the amendment, and this one does not limit you also speaking to the other motion, so you still have a right, yes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I arise to support the motion as amended. First, I want to thank Mheshimiwa Keter for the good work that he has brought, and particularly in this motion where we are discussing about sports. First, it is important for us to realize that rugby is a very unique sport. And as my dear brother just said, that the Western has really taken over and it is true. You know, rugby is a sport that needs people with muscles. Their physique must be. If you look for a person from Nyeri and who has not eaten very well, he might not even be able to. So I want to agree. In my constituency, I have a rugby team by the name Wanyore, and I know Wanyore comes from the Western. And I want to believe that it is one of the sports that we really want to support because it is one of the sports that has put Kenya on the sporting mark. And true to the fact, much as the Sevens has taken us there, the other one that has, of course, the 50, has not really been given a lot of attention. But at the same time, I think in agreeing with what Keter is saying, is that we cannot be having Kenyan participating in the Sevens for the last almost 20 years. And yet, we don't have a stadia that one day we could be watching the Sevens in this country. And I think that is the most important aspect of us having a specific stadia for a specific sports, so that one day we might even ask as a country that we be given an opportunity to be able to host the Sevens. So we keep on seeing our country moving from across the world, but we never see them coming here. And I want to thank our Sevens team that at one time they did lift that trophy despite them playing far away from home. And I want to thank the rugby team for the good work that they are doing. But Honorable Speaker, just in the 11th Parliament, where you are also present, we did pass a bill that is now an act of Parliament where all the sports pesa money, 35%, was meant to go towards improving the sporting activity in this country. And we also want to pass this message to the Treasury Cabinet Secretary that this money has been collected for quite a while now, and we are not seeing the fruits of this sports pesa money that was being taken. It is very unfortunate to see sports pesa going to support an English team to a tune of over 6 billion shillings and leaving the country naked, yet this is the country where they are creating or collecting a lot of revenue to be able to go and support. So we want to see whatever we agreed under that act when we were making those amendments, that money is specifically used for sporting activity. And that is what we want to see, so that we can be able to, and rugby being one of them. I've been to watch rugby. They have the one field in Nairobi, not very good. But if we could be able to improve even that, but again, I think that is a private property. So we'd want the government to be able to initiate a study specifically for rugby, so that we can be able to. And we also want to ask the minister to take seriously the sports that is giving a good name to this country. I don't agree with my brother, who I think it was Songok, who said football is not doing well. We want to thank the young man by the name Nick Mwendwa, the president of Football Kenya Federation. He has done so much, particularly on matters to do with the youth football, and it has put Kenya at some place in football. So again, giving the leadership to young people will steer this country a long way in terms of sports. So football has not been left. I want to thank my president, Honorable Nick Mwendwa, the president of Football Kenya Federation, for the good work that he's doing. But that does not stop us. And it's unfortunate that Muthe left the rugby. Of course, other people have to take. As my brother had indicated, Muthe took up his time and gave rugby a thought. And we want to thank Muthe wherever he is. If you can.
Very well. The member for Samburis, the Honorable Lekumatare Jackson.
Lekumatare. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm Lekumatare. I also like to speak on the amendment form. Madam Speaker, sports are very important activities for the youth of Kenya. And if you look at our constituencies, the youths are always crying for the stadiums. They want to be supported to have these facilities. But we know, Madam Speaker, it is not possible to have in every region. But as the Honorable Member proposed the amendments, it is important and it is necessary, Madam Speaker, that we have one in the country, so that as we continue now developing the sports, then we have at least a national stadium for the teams. And I think that one will help us. Madam Speaker, we need to support any activity that will help the youth. It's really very bad if maybe we have so many youths who are not employed, but they lack again the facilities. Sports will help the youth even to grow up economically. And when this one will come again and create some jobs for the youth. So, Madam Speaker, it is a very important activity that we are going to help our youth. What is required here, that we also don't pass so many things here and they are not being implemented. If you look at the constituencies, there are what is called youth centers, which were supposed to be put up for the youth. But up to now, we don't have. So, Madam Speaker, as we pass this, as we support, it is very important for the department to take it up and start implementing. Because if it is not implemented, then it will not help the youth. and it will not serve the purpose which was intended for. So, Madam Speaker, I support this. It will help our youth, and it is something that will help the youth to even get some things to do. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Motion. Of course, I say it again, this does not deprive you the opportunity to speak to the main motion. The member for Nyando.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise to support the amendment as has been proposed by Honorable Ngeny. It is true that we needed to tinker a little bit with the body of the motion to read National Stadium. All sports must be given due attention in this country, be it rugby, athletics, soccer, or even singing. I remember in the year 2013, the Jubilee government in its manifesto had proposed building 5 stadia within the Republic of Kenya. That was just a political pronouncement. And why? One of the reasons why it did not take off is because there were no legal instruments to safeguard such kinds of pronouncements. And going forward, Madam Speaker, and this kind of motion is very key to execution of certain issues that fall within the prism of sport, is that this kind of amendment, therefore, and the motion as a whole, will hence safeguard the execution of sporting stadia within the Republic. The amendment will, as proposed, every region having a stadium will help harness various talents that our people are espoused with. It is true that Kenyans are talented in various ways, rugby being one of it because of our physique and our diet. Because you look at rugby, it is a testament that you need a lot of ugali and some good food. So in order to properly utilize the physique that is utterly God-given, we must therefore have this kind of stadia to help build the talents around rugby. It definitely blows your mind, Madam Speaker, if you hear what our international players are being paid out there. And because we have backpedaled on the backbone of our economy, which is agricultural intervention and tourism being number 2, let us diverse our talents to embrace sporting as one of our foreign earners, Madam Speaker. If you listen to what footballers, international footballers, I don't want to mention them because they've not paid me to advertise them, but you really get very surprised at the amounts of money that they make every week. And this is going to be a way where Kenyans will also be able to export various talents to help improve our GDP. We know how much our diaspora injects into our economy, and they don't make very much money out there. But we know how much money is made courtesy of sporting. So that will be a very big boost to the economy of this country. And I would really pray that we embrace the amendment so that this country can go sporting full hog as a shortcut to wealth creation. I know there are other avenues of creating wealth where you have to go through school, you have to graduate, you have to get a job, you have to get a paltry salary, which will hence be upscaled, and it takes forever for one to create wealth in this country. And sporting is one of the shortcuts for wealth creation, so let's embrace it. And opening up the stadia for various talents would help our young people growing up, harnessing what they have, which is basically God-given, to hence make a livelihood. If you go out there and listen to the stories of successful football players or other sporting events, they will tell you that they began from academies, nurturing what they have from childhood, going up the ladder. So I rise to support this kind of amendment in a bid to embrace sporting activities and sporting stadia all across our 8 regions. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Honorable member for Rangwe. She's not in the house. We'll have the Honorable Nyaga Nkatha, member for Tharaka Nithi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to support this motion by Honorable Gideon and amended by Honorable Ngeno. Mr. Speaker, rugby is a very important sport, and I really support that we need to bring or to establish a stadium that our people, or our young people, can be able to do the activity. Sports, Mr. Speaker, is a vital activity that brings together people from different regions and categories. It is an activity that supports the growth of our economy, improve the health of the participants, and also the social and cultural benefits. Mr. Speaker, the rugby sports in this country has grown for years. It has put Kenya to a position that we have been able to produce players who are recognized worldwide. Mr. Speaker, we need to facilitate the growth of our youth, empower them so that they can be able to engage themselves, so that they cannot be able to be associated or doing activities that does not support their health, that does not support their activities that can be able to produce or support the economy of this country. Mr. Speaker, we have so many stadiums going on. Some are being built, new ones. Some are being renovated. But Mr. Speaker, they are taking a lot of time. They are not completed on time. We want to urge the government to do something so that they can be completed on time, so that we can be able to do our sporting and whatever we want to do on them on time. So, Mr. Speaker, it is very important, because in some of our schools, in the rural schools, most of our youth or young people, they don't know what is rugby. Some have never seen it, even the boys. So with this kind of facilities, we can be able to train particularly the youth in our rural areas and other areas so that they can be able to participate. So I really support Mr. Speaker. Thank you for the opportunity.
The Honorable Washira Kabinga, member for Mwea.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I also rise to support this motion that has been proposed by Honorable Gideon and amended by Honorable Ngeno. Mr. Speaker, as I rise, I would like to correct my colleague, the Honorable Member for Nyando, that the Jubilee government did not just talk about stadia in each of the counties. They are doing it, they are continuing to doing it, and I'm sure he's aware that the Jubilee government is already doing that. Mr. Speaker, in supporting this motion, I also take note that we have passed so many other motions in the past relating to sports, and I hope that as an implementing committee, we will take some of these motions seriously to ensure that they are implemented. Rugby and any other sports, Mr. Speaker, remains untapped opportunity in this country to not only help our youth, but also to earn revenue in terms of exporting our sports talents out there, Mr. Speaker. And it has come to our notice, Mr. Speaker, while we are doing business in our constituencies, that we have a number of our youth who are talented in different fields, but they are not able to execute those talents because of lack of opportunities. I am aware in my own constituency, Mwea, while seated in my office, Mr. Speaker, I would receive not less than 3 talents each day. May they be athletics, football, or any other sports event, including canoes in our famous River Tana. And Mr. Speaker, the resources that we have allocated or being given in CDF is not enough to support these talents to the extent that we would want to. And so as we support this particular motion, Mr. Speaker, and any that we have supported before, it would be good for the sports committee to see if they can push for a special fund for each constituency to be able to support talents that we are noticing in our constituencies, Mr. Speaker. I want to take note that different regions have different areas of talents. And so, Mr. Speaker, in my particular region, rugby has not migrated, but if this motion is passed and we have a rugby stadium in our county, definitely we will start seeing people who are our youth getting much more interested in that. As we do so, I continue to urge the sports committee. I saw them the other day doing their rounds in the country. They were in Kakamega, and I could see a beautiful stadium there. I hope when they visit Mount Kenya region, they will be visiting my county, Kirinyaga, to note that we do not have any stadium that can promote sports. And so, Mr. Speaker, hope that when we go there, they will find it necessary to talk to the relevant ministry to speed up the development of a stadium in Kirinyaga County. And if possible, Mr. Speaker, have it in the populous areas of Wanguru in Mwea, where we have all these talents, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I therefore stand to support this motion and once again urge that the implementing committee take this parliament seriously so that all the motions that we have passed may not just remain out there in the archives, but we start seeing the fruits, as I do support this motion, and hope that my colleague from Nyando will take note of the studies that are being done by the government. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. Honorable members, I see no further interest in this particular motion. The honorable member for Imurwadikir, you have a point of order.
Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I wish to, I'm standing on a point of order number 53, Mr. Speaker, where I would wish to request the deferment of putting of the question to another day.
Very well. I think that point of order is quite in order. For obvious reasons, we don't have the necessary quorum to proceed in that direction. I therefore direct that the putting of the question is deferred, and also after the putting of the question, the reply by the mover is also deferred to that time when the matter will again come up for deliberation. It is to be noted that the balance of time for this particular motion is 12 minutes. So when it's again listed down, it will be available to the members for 12 minutes. I therefore direct that we move to the next order.
Order number 11, the Constitution of Kenya Amendment number 2 Bill, National Assembly Bill number 5 of 2018, second reading.
The Honorable Wamalwa, Chris Wamalwa, is not in the House. I will therefore direct that order be deferred, and we move to the next order.
Order number 12, motion, construction of post-trauma care facilities for survivors of sexual and gender-based violence.
The Honorable Jessica Mbalu.
Mr. Speaker, let me state from the onset that I did expect that we would have had Honorable Chris Wamalwa in the House. The members were very ready, of course, on the second reading on the Constitution Kenya Amendment Bill number 2 of National Assembly, number 5 of 2018. But because, of course, he's still preparing and he's talked of being in consultation, and knowing the interest of time and the importance of time in this House, Mr. Speaker, I will move to my motion, Mr. Speaker. However sketchy it is, but I'll try to put it into place. Mr. Speaker, I beg to move the motion on construction of post-trauma care facilities for the survivors of sexual and gender-based violence, that aware that every person has a right to freedom and security, which includes the right not to be subject to any form of violence from either public or private sources, recognizing the crucial role of the women in the prevention of African values based on the principles of equality, peace, freedom, dignity, justice, solidarity, and democracy, determined to ensure that the rights of women are promoted, realized and protected in order to enable them to enjoy fully all their human rights, recalling that international laws and conventions such as the Convention on Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, United Nations Resolutions 1325 and 1820, about violence against women as it hinders the progress of women and perpetuates their subordinate status. Noting that the Maputo Protocol on the Rights of Women, which states that parties shall adopt and implement appropriate measures to ensure the protection of every human's rights to respect for our dignity and protection of women from all forms of violence, particularly sexual and gender-based violence, Mr. Speaker, so we call SGBV, continue to lack post-trauma care due to lack of adequate shelters, safe houses. Acknowledging that despite enactment of various laws addressing sexual and gender-based violence, such as the Sexual Offences Act 2006, the Witness Protection Act 2006 too, the Female Genital Mutilation Act 2011, the Victim Protection Act 2014, the Protection of Domestic Violence Act 2015, there is high rate of sexual and gender-based violence crime with an equal or higher number of survivors all over the country, Mr. Speaker. This House urges the national government to set aside funds to facilitate the construction of post-trauma care facilities and ensure existing ones are rehabilitated and equipped to offer temporary stay for survivors of sexual and gender-based violence, the GBV, across the country. Mr. Speaker, even as I move this motion, and we have a feeling that we are urging a lot the government, we need a resolution of some of the motions that we pass in this House, Mr. Speaker. And so I must also pronounce myself that I will be bringing an amendment to propose a change to the GBV Act, Mr. Speaker, to ensure that even as we do motions, we also make laws in the House. Mr. Speaker, as a background, sexual and gender-based violence, the SGBV, as we refer them, is an umbrella of any harmful act, if I want to I may define it, is an umbrella term of any harmful act that is perpetrated against a person's will, and that is based on socially ascribed gender differences between men and women, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the nature and extent of specific GBV vary across cultures, they vary across countries, they vary across regions, and examples of this include rape, and I'm happy as we speak to this, we have pupils from and students from schools that are really going through such kind of harassment. They include rape cases, Mr. Speaker. They include sexual exploitation. They include forced prostitution, issues of domestic violence, Mr. Speaker. We're also talking about trafficking, forced or early marriages that we are experiencing in our country, Mr. Speaker. And again, harmful traditional practices such as the famous female genital mutilation and, honor killings. Mr. Speaker, such acts of violence, though defined mostly in respect to women, they include acts that inflict physical, mental, or sexual harm or suffering trace of such acts, coercion, and other deprivations of liberty, whether either occurring in public or occurring in private life, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, these acts amount to violation of human rights. It's often linked to unequal gender relations within communities and abuses of power. Mr. Speaker, I must state that this motion, even as presented, Mr. Speaker, yesterday in my county, and I come from Makueni County, of course, representing the people of Kibwesi's constituency, we had a clip that went viral, Mr. Speaker, over one Mr. Nzomo, who was beating the wife brutally, Mr. Speaker, including even telling the wife that he's going to chop his throat or kill her, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, I felt for the children of Mr. Nzomo and the wife. Mr. Speaker, if you look at the statistics, and for this we are calling upon the DCI, of course, it has been captured, that such activities, such, bad, brutal activities should not be encouraged, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, according to UNIFEM reports, domestic violence stands out as one of the most prevalent forms of SGBV, Mr. Speaker. And violence occasioned by male partners in relationships, and when I speak about this, I know also the male suffer. It's not about the women only, and I know Kioni would testify with me also, the men suffer quietly. And know that we do not have the right statistics. The men, they are not left out. However, the cases that have been reported mostly, and I want to give statistics, is about 70% report cases, they are about wife battering. Mr. Speaker, I'm also a wife. I don't want to say that I've been battered or not, but I want to speak for the other women, those who are battered, Mr. Speaker, without no reason. Mr. Speaker, I keep on saying, yes, we could be married, we are married, but that one does not give a clean bill of rights for any man or for on the other side for any woman to fight a man or a wife. In the Mr. Speaker, the husband that Mr. Nzomo, who made me not even to sleep, Mr. Speaker, speaking for the women of Makueni and Kenya, Mr. Nzomo talked about, accused the wife. And if you looked at the wife, Mr. Speaker, she looked like a schoolgirl, Mr. Speaker. They talked about the wife going to join other men in the field in taking care of the cattle, Mr. Speaker, cattle. And I asked myself, why didn't the man not go to take care of the cattle, Mr. Speaker? And now he assumed, and that it must have been an accusation that maybe she was engaged in other activities while there, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, so I said 70% of reported cases is about wife battery, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, 85%, it's about cultures. In Kenya, an estimated that almost half, around 45% of women aged between 15 to 49 years have experienced either physical or sexual violence. The National Crime Research Center about the SGBV, Mr. Speaker, provides a grim picture of instances of SGBV, which indicates the report that the center has supported over 21,341 survivors of SGBV, Mr. Speaker, of whom 56 were women, 36 are girls, 3% are men, I don't know, Kioni, where we fall in this, because 3% are only men, the cases that have been reported, and these cases are more in women, or the men keep quiet or die, quietly, and 5% are boys. And these are the statistics. Mr. Speaker, I remember in my vernacular language and vernacular station last week, there was a debate of whether when women are battered, most of them will report, but whether when men are battered, whether they report to the centers. Mr. Speaker, it was a really interesting debate on the same, because some men, they say when they report, they will look like the weaker gender. Mr. Speaker, all said and done, we are saying any gender-based violence, we will not allow it. In my own county of Makueni, we have disturbing situations, Mr. Speaker. 145 cases of the SGB have been reported. The reported cases are below the national average, but of course, still, it's a disturbing, issues of defilement, domestic violence have concern amongst our, maybe the Ministry of Interior and Education. Mr. Speaker, we have legislative policies that we've been able to do, to make in this parliament. I and you and other members, we are happy to have been in the 11th parliament, and we are aware of some of the legislative frameworks that we've been able to pass, thanks to the parliament, the National Assembly, that has been doing a very good job, Mr. Speaker, in trying to ensure that such cases that are not within our constitution, Mr. Speaker, and we must, during the promulgation of the Constitution, Mr. Speaker, we have laws that we have made, and of course that has been allowed, that can take care of this. Section 2(6) of the Constitution, Mr. Speaker, read out together with the Treaty Making and Ratification Act of 2012, Mr. Speaker, all international and regional legislative and policy frameworks adopted and ratified by Kenya have become part of the domesticated laws by, to ensure that we fight the SGBV, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, within this context, Kenya has taken steps in ratifying international treaties and regional conventions on elimination of SGBV and gender equality. The Speaker has also put into place national policy and legislative framework that supports the campaign against all forms of SGBV in practice. When you look at globally, Mr. Speaker, the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action, the 1995, the well-known, adopted a set of priority areas in which Kenya needed to accede to, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the prohibition on discrimination in the UN Convention on the elimination of all forms of discrimination against women, encompassing SBGV, has also been addressed. We look at the UN Declaration on Elimination of Violence, Mr. Speaker, against women, affirms that violence against women constitutes a violation of rights and fundamental freedom of women, Mr. Speaker. And so even from where I sit, I also say and fundamental freedom of men, because I know this is a house of women and men, though, of course, we've seen from statistics that these cases are happening more to women, and we are yet to be proved different by the statistics. Mr. Speaker, further, the African Union adopted the protocol to the African Charter on Human and People's Rights, Mr. Speaker, which was ratified by Kenya in 2010. The protocol to the African Charter on Human and People's Rights, on the rights of women, Africa, Divorce Africa, and of course, devoting Article 4 entirely on the topic of violence against women, calling for a range of state measures to address violence which takes place in private or in public, as is stated, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, when you look at the Security Council that was adopted the 1325, Mr. Speaker, on women and peace and security, this was adopted in that 1st October 2000. Some of the resolutions, of course, were to reaffirm the important role of women in the prevention and the resolution of conflicts, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it also calls on all the parties to conflict to take special measures to protect women and girls from gender-based violence, particularly the rape and other forms of the abuse, that is sexual abuse, and in situations of armed conflict, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Also referring to the United Nations Security Council, a resolution was 1820. It was unanimously adopted in the date 19th June 2008, Mr. Speaker. It contains the use of sexual violence as a tool of war, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, and it declares that rape and other forms of sexual violence can constitute war crimes and crimes against humanity or a constitute act which respect to, of course, even to genocide, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we have as a country some of the statutes that take care of this gender-based violence, Mr. Speaker.
The honorable member for okay, President, your time has run out. I don't know. You still need a little more to move. I'll allow you 2 minutes.
My time to do, is it time of the House or time for me to move?
The time for you to move, not the time for the House. I'm allowing you 2 more minutes
To move?
Yes.
Oh, sorry, Mr. Speaker. I must say that we have statutes that talk about this. We have the Constitution of Kenya, Penal Code Act, the HIV/AIDS prevention. I have a list of around 10, Mr. Speaker. The Marriage Act that talks about all these issues of education, gender policy, Vision 2030. And why I'm calling upon, and of course, ready to bring an amendment to this of issues like one-stop centers, is because, Mr. Speaker, we are looking for a temporary housing for these gender-based violated victims, Mr. Speaker. It's because when we get the housing, Mr. Speaker, we will be looking at these victims can be housed for some time to ensure that at least law and can be used. We can ensure that they can get time, Mr. Speaker, to heal. If it is wife battering, Mr. Speaker, they can also get time to, from a confined place to ensure maybe they can resolve their issues, maybe with the husband. If it is our school children, Mr. Speaker, they can have a place to, recover and ensure that even as they go back to their homes and they back to their schools, they are ill, Mr. Speaker. So shelters, Mr. Speaker, the government has not provided, and that's what I'm calling upon, either one stop of, center in every constituency, or at least a major housing in every county where our girls, our women, our men can get refuge, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker. When we talk about these houses, Mr. Speaker, and the ministry should put a budget aside, we look at so many issues that are addressing the issues of women, addressing the issues of families, making homes, Mr. Speaker, but without major areas that we can get a shelter, Mr. Speaker, we will just be in vain. Mr. Speaker, these house shelters will stop cases where Kenyans buy child, we are aware of what is happening in the refugee camps. Mr. Speaker, some of the rape cases are very disturbing, and these women and children will need to recover from, a shelter or housing, and that's why I'm calling upon this. And Mr. Speaker, because of the interest of time, Mr. Speaker, all these gender-based violence activities, I must condemn them, and I condemn that Mr. from Makueni County who did batter the wife. Mr. Speaker, if you looked at that clip, it has gone viral. I thank the DCI and the OCPD together with the commission, the county commission, Makueni County, were taking action. But this one does not heal, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, because of interest of time, I will call upon, I beg to move and call upon Mr. Kioni, this time to second, and I'm sure he really supports the gender-based. I don't know whether men, and he stands to fit the men, whether men are also battered, but this one we should eliminate it against the women. Mr. Speaker, I call support from the members, looking forward to bring amendment to the act so that we can make laws, because as we said, these members in this house, we are getting tired of urging, and because of the issue of the budget, we are not able to resolve, but we must speak for our people.
The Honorable Kioni. The Honorable Kioni, you have 5 minutes to second.
5 minutes. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the 5 minutes. Mr. Speaker, the issues of gender-based violence cuts across countries. It cuts across boundaries. It does not know races, it does not know culture, it does not know religion. And it occurs in all places that we are familiar with, in our homes. It happens in the schools, workplaces, in the entertainment center, in detention centers, everywhere that people congregate. And in seconding this very important motion, and I want to thank the mover for this wonderful thought. Mr. Speaker, it is important to appreciate that this is a very complex issue, an issue that requires professionals to deal with it. It is an issue that we cannot continue wishing it away by keeping quiet. And I think it is the opportune time that we ask the government to provide or to construct these trauma cares across the country. Victims are really those who are vulnerable, Mr. Speaker. We find that they are from all forms of gender. We have them in races, ethnic origin, disability, or school status. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter what kind of or where you come from. Nobody is immune from this, and it does not matter how much money you have. All of us are exposed to this, and it is important that these trauma centers are created. Statistics have been shared by us, by the mover, but allow me, Mr. Speaker, to just say that the UN, the United Nations report gives a statistical data that reflects that 35% of women worldwide will have suffered from physical or sexual violence by a non-partner by sometimes in their lives. 70% of women will have experienced physical or sexual violence from an intimate partner. In Kenya, the domestic household survey that was done in 2014, 38% of the women aged between 15 and 49 reported physical violence, and another 14% reported having experienced sexual violence. In Kenya, again, Mr. Speaker, 2013, we have the Kenya Police report. They received 3,596 defilement cases, 913 rape cases, 242 cases of incest, 124 of sodomy. The most affected, Mr. Speaker, are girls aged between 12 and 17, comprising of 41% of the survivors. And the report further tells us that this is followed by women aged between 18 and 49 years, making 32% of those who have been victims. Recovery centers are useful, Mr. Speaker, for quite a number of reasons, which include a comprehensive quality care for survivors of gender-based violence, that is the rape, sexual violence, and even sexual exploitation. And they also provide medical management of the injuries that have been sustained. They provide treatment to ensure that HIV is not transmitted, Mr. Speaker. We also know that it's possible to get emergency contraceptive pills provided to the victims, and treatment or prevention and treatment of sexually transmitted diseases. And they also serve as a collection of physical evidence and samples necessary for the prosecution of perpetrators, including the issue of having them as a psychosocial care centers. Mr. Speaker, the usefulness of these centers cannot be overemphasized. We need them across the country. This is happening. I worked in Nyahururu law courts some time back, and I can tell you, Mr. Speaker, that these cases happen every day. We have some courts dealing with up to 65% of their cases on a daily basis relate to issues that are gender-based, on issues relate to issues that are of gender-based violence. And this is a very timely motion. I think it is important that we make sure, and the government does provide these trauma care centers across the country, and they even are better when they are linked to provincial government hospitals or such other government facilities, so that they become useful.
The Honorable, give him the mic, just a second. Yes.
Thank you. With those many remarks, Mr. Speaker, I beg to second. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable members, I propose the question that are aware that every person has a right to freedom and security, which includes the right not to be subjected to any form of violence from either public or private sources, recognizing the crucial role of women in the preservation of African values based on the principles of equality, peace, freedom, dignity, justice, solidarity, and democracy, determined to ensure that the rights of women are promoted, realized, and protected in order to enable them to enjoy fully all their human rights, recalling that international laws and conventions, such as the Convention on Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination against Women, United Nations Resolution 1325 and 1820, abhor violence against women as it hinders the progress of women and perpetuates their subordinate status, noting that the Maputo Protocol on the Rights of Women, which states that parties shall adopt and implement appropriate measures to ensure the protection of every woman's right to respect for her dignity and protection of women from all forms of violence, particularly sexual, physical, and verbal violence, deeply concerned that most survivors of sexual violence and gender-based violence, SGBV, continue to lack post-trauma care due to lack of adequate shelters, safe houses, acknowledging that despite enactment of various laws addressing sexual and gender-based violence, such as the Sexual Offences Act 2006, the Witness Protection Act 2006, the Female Genital Mutilation Act 2011, the Victim Protection Act 2014, the Protection of Domestic Violence Act 2015, there is high rate of sexual and gender-based violence crimes with an equal or higher number of survivors all over the country. This House urges the national government to set aside funds to facilitate the construction of post-trauma care facilities and ensure existing ones are rehabilitated and equipped to offer temporary stay of survivors of sexual and gender-based violence, GBV, across the country. Honorable members, I see interest in this matter, but the time being what it is, I will defer the debate on this matter to the next time that the matter will be set down. And when it is set down, it will have a balance of 1 hour and 35 minutes. Honorable members, the time being 1:05 p.m., this House stands adjourned till today, Wednesday, the 1st of August 2018 at 2:30 p.m.